At this stage, I have the honor and privilege of inviting our Dean to say a few words to us. He's been amazing. He's the most energetic, positive, and outward-looking Dean I've ever worked. And I've worked in higher education for 17 years. So if I say that, it is very true. Thank you.
I'm going to stand here and let me ask whether you can hear me loud and clear at the back. Can you hear me loud and clear? Or do you want me to use a microphone?
Microphone.
Microphone's better? Right. Next, quick. Can you hear me better now? Yeah, much better. Good. And good morning, everyone. I think it's an amazing pleasure to be here. But thank you first, I think, for being here with us. I think it was very, very important. You would have seen the video messages. But being at Bradford, all of you all coming together. First, those of you are from Ghana, but I can understand that there's lots of people who have traveled the world as well. So it takes immense pleasure to have you all being here at Bradford. I think when Craig mentioned about this whole idea, from an idea to reality, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of people. All the time, that thank you note that Craig did means that the reality is here. To be able to organize a conference, there's a lot of people putting day and night at any event to make it a reality. I think that can't happen without you. It can't happen without hard work and dedication put together by loads of people. So first of all, this event won't be an event without all of you. Yeah. So thank you for being here at Bradford. It's a real honor for us. And I'll introduce myself a little bit, but I also want to have a few words of what this means to us, what the scholarly conference, the Ghanaian Scholarly Conference, means to us, and why it's a real honor to have you all here, and what messages that you want to take back or key actions that come out of it. Because I think these 2 days does matter. You have given up your own time to be here, so it does matter for you all to be here and what you want to take back. So that's what I want to sort of talk in the next 2 to 3 minutes. So my name is Sank Sibraja. Craig was a lot more energy than I have, so he's been really entertaining in the past couple of minutes while I've spoken. So I've been at Bradford for the last 7 years now. So it's been a real honor to be at Bradford. I've learned a lot. I've been in HE sector for only 10 years or so. Craig, you beat me 17 years. But I think education as an institution, or the things that we do as educators, means a lot to me. And I'll tell you why. And the constant reminders that we have and the things that we can do to shape the society. Through education, through research that we do, we have a real responsibility to give back to the community. So that's important. And something that I never thought I will be here. I grew up in Sri Lanka. I came to the UK as an international student, and to be able to think about how we can, as responsible adults or citizens, are able to actually educate and shape the society matters a lot. So 7 years, 5 years as the Dean of the School of Management at Bradford, I'm only a custodian. Lots of people have built this institution just like other institutions. I think it's our responsibility to live even in a better place, or shape it in a way that the education really transforms real people. So that's about myself and what it means to be at Bradford. It's our 60 years at the School of Management, so it was a real big honor to have you all here, being hosted as well. So 60 years of institution that has a lot of heritage, giving back and working with the society in terms of education and the research, and we hope there'll be another 60 years to come as well. I can see David here, who has been one of our past deans as well, who is here. So I think there's a lot of people who have built this foundation for the actual institution to thrive. And that takes, in terms of the research that we do, and I think the impact that we have on the society, and the risk the society faces. So let me open up with a big question. I always reflect, some of you all have heard this, but I think it's important for us to all reflect on this. And this is why you're all here together, because it's not one person's agenda to change the world. It takes every single person, be it the stakeholders, be it education institutions, be it government institutions, be it the businesses. Think about the real risks the society is facing at this moment. Right? Everyone knows the uncertainty, the volatility that we all face. But do you know what the top 3 risks the society is facing? This is according to World Economic Forum. Who wants to take a guess? I will leave the Bradford police for the moment. Don't don't intervene, but the top 3 short-term risks that the World Economic Forum has released, recent report, think about the top 3 for the next 2 years, not 10 years. Think about what are the top 3 risks the society is facing. Anyone wants to guess? Number 1, or number 2, or number 3? Who wants to take a guess? Go on. It's okay. AI, very much on there. I think there is a real significant importance of AI. I agree. I will build on that. Anyone else wants to guess something else? Poverty. Good. One final guess, and then I'll share my sustainability. All on the stage. So the top 3 risks, World Economic Forum, they do publish this risks of the society report. But what they have, in January 2024, they published the report, and if you all have a chance, go and have a look at it. And things used to be in the last year about cost of living, inflation, everything else that we will all realize. The number 1 short-term risk for the next 2 years is going to be misinformation and disinformation by technologies like AI. Number 2, the society's risk is extreme weather conditions through climate change. Right? It's not just climate change, it's what we are facing across the globe. And I saw actual image of how the world looked like in 1800s, and this is reports out there, you can see it on the internet, and how the world is looking like purely from a temperature increase. So if it was blue, let's say 1800, now the whole globe is red in temperature. That's us having an impact on the place that we live in, right? That's extreme. Number 3, the final one, which I didn't hear from anyone here, polarization of society, the divide that we are seeing, the war that we are seeing, the conflict that's coming, that's through extreme polarization of the society and the divide that all of this adds to. It's important for us to reflect. I reflect on this every single time when we think about programs, the research that we do, the society that we want to create and shape. It's important for every single one of us to be really thinking about how do we go back and contribute to any means that you have responsibility for. So the research that you do and the theme of the conference, the Ghanaian Scholarly Conference Society, in terms of contributions to sustainable development goals, there's a lot of things, poverty, peace, conflict, war, every single one of us to come together to be able to address that. So it's important, the role that we play, I think it's important for us to take. So the work that we do, it isn't before, when I think about what our responsibility is, and this is my plea to you all in the next 2 days, right? You learn, you network, you engage. There's no day and age these days to think about, is it profit or purpose for business? It's profit and purpose, right? It's important. Both of them can work together, right? As business, as economists, think about that. It's no more theory or practice. It's theory and practice. The research that we do, how does it work for the society? Or we will all be publishing research that just collects dust. So it's important for us to really think about the knowledge that you create really has an impact on the society. So it's theory and practice. It's no more diversity or inclusion. It's both diversity and inclusion. You need different people coming together from different parts of the world. You need people coming together from different backgrounds to be able to tackle the society's challenges, right? And that's what it all means. It's no more impact or innovation or engagement. It's all of them together. The work that we do needs to have engagement, innovation, and that has a real impact for the society. So my real plea for every single one of you is to really think about how, as stakeholders, researchers, as educators of the world, to think how we can create knowledge. It needs to be not groundbreaking. It could be one thing that you learn from here or take away from here to go back and address the societal challenges. That's important. And the final word, and this is a constant reminder for me, our own MBA student reminded me of this, right? A famous brilliant sort of philosopher's quote from it. Education doesn't change the world. Education changes people. People then change the world. So on that note, I want you all to really reflect, make every single moment count. Take the knowledge you learn here, the network that you build here, the things that you really want to take back. Think about the society that you want to see back. It could be your community, anywhere you work. This is an international community. Think about the local issues, but has a global relevance. And that's how you really make it count. So on that note, I think enjoy the rest of the 2 days. Have a really, truly Bradford experience, be current, but I think the one takeaway point that you can take away is to think about the action that you can take in your local communities. I think that's more powerful. If we do that together, we can have a good shot at tackling societal challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sanka. The most powerful sick man from Ghana and the United Kingdom's High Commissioner. And what an honor to have him here. And I would have the privilege of inviting Dr. Priscilla Painter to introduce.
Good morning, everyone. I'll make it real brief because I know the one you want to hear is the High Commissioner, not me. His Excellency Papa Owusu Nkrumah is a senior Ghanaian political figure, statesman, and lawyer. He is a founding member of the New Patriotic Party, the NPP, which he represented in Ghana's parliament as a member from 1997 to 2016 for the historic city of Sekondi in the Western region. During his tenure in parliament, he served in many parliamentary positions, culminating in his selection as majority leader in parliament. His Excellency Owusu Nkrumah was a prominent member of the Kufuor administration from 2001 to 2008, during which he served in a record number of senior ministerial positions. So he is an embodiment of interdisciplinary because he has served as a Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Minister of Interior, Minister of Trade and Industry, and Minister of Education, Science and Sports. So it cuts across a lot of our research areas here, doesn't it? His Excellency Owusu Nkrumah is a leading member of the Ghanaian Bar and the founding partner of Owusu Nkrumah, Alvo Mensah, Jigba, and Associates. So shall we give him the honor that's due and spend time in the
Having started preparation at around 4 a.m. in London, I set off at 5 minutes to get here time because it took about 4 hours, 15 minutes. And even as at yesterday, I was wondering whether I shouldn't stay back in the mission to welcome the Kunku Board awardees of the year. But then I decided that no, Ghana Scholarly Society. The invitation was extended to me, I guess, sometime in April, March, that fall. Couldn't even before that. And my good friend Sami Krau also reminded me, when he returned from Ghana a few days ago. But I must say that it is a pleasure and honor to be with you. As you close your mouth. And considering the theme for this conference, contributing to SDGs in Africa through multidisciplinary research and engagement. I'm sure this event marks a significant milestone in our collective journey toward achieving the SDGs. We should always remind ourselves of our shared commitment to advance these global objectives, which are integral to the future well-being of Africa. I realize that the vision of the Ghana Scholarly Society is bold and transformative because you seek to harness the immense potential of academic excellence to foster social change. Well, under your leadership, you seek to transcend traditional academic boundaries and through pioneering research and innovative solutions, address the myriad challenges that face our continent, from economic disparities to health and environmental crises. And I commend the Bradford University School of Management and other stakeholders for getting this conference in place. One thing that has always engaged my attention as a political leader is how to get the best brains of Ghana to transform our country. And I even mentioned it earlier when I met some of your colleagues, that for me, the greatest failure of political leadership in Ghana and indeed Africa is not being able to use the global intellectual power of our country in Africa to transform our country. So I've been asking myself, if we had all these brains, both within and without Africa, how come Africa and Ghana are in the state in which they are at the moment? So I am personally committed to supporting such an endeavor because the society is holding itself out, not just as a think tank, but as a catalyst for change. So your role in Africa's vision for prosperity cannot be understated. The society is expected to drive the intellectual and practical advancement necessary to achieve Africa's ambitious goals. In recent years, I dare say Ghana has made some strides in achieving the SDGs, particularly in the areas of poverty reduction, that's the SDG 1, quality education, SDG 4, decent work and economic growth, SDG 8, industry, innovation and infrastructure, SDG 9, and reduce inequalities, SDG 10. And one of Ghana's most notable achievements in its development journey is reduction in poverty rate from 56.5% in 1992 to 23.4% in recent assessment. And of course, this reduction is a result of several factors, including economic growth, improved agricultural productivity, and targeted social protection programs such as Livelihood Empowered Against Poverty Leap initiative, which provides cash transfers and health insurance to the most vulnerable populations. That's significantly improving their living standards. But we still face significant challenges in the educational sector. The UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report indicates that while there has been an increase in enrollment rates at all educational levels, disparities in access and quality persist. Programs such as the free senior high school policy, even though has led to increased enrollment, with issues such as inadequate infrastructure, shortage of trained teachers, disparities between urban and rural schools continue to affect education outcomes. So in achieving the goals of the SDGs, to require a multifaceted approach that leverages the strengths of multidisciplinary research, engagement, and collaborative effort across various fields of study. And it is in this regard that the society can wield its influence most effectively. Indeed, multidisciplinary research plays a pivotal role in eradicating poverty by providing comprehensive insights into its root causes and effective interventions. Economists, sociologists, and public health experts, for example, can collaborate to develop and evaluate poverty alleviation programs by engaging local communities in the research process, ensuring that interventions are culturally appropriate and address specific local needs. Research can identify the most vulnerable populations, assess the effectiveness of social protection schemes like cash transfers, and translate findings to recommend policy adjustments. For instance, inclusive growth through initiatives like the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program, which targets those most in need, contribute to a more inclusive society where all individuals have access to necessities such as quality education and opportunities for advancement. So as we forge ahead, let us be guided by a spirit of unity and purpose. Though the challenges Africa and Africans face are significant, the opportunities for transformation and progress are even greater. We say that this century is Africa's century. I dare say that with the steadfast support of members of this society and its partners, the society can contribute significantly in making Africa chart a course towards becoming a thriving, resilient, and prosperous continent. I must thank this society for its commitment to excellence and its belief in the power of knowledge to shape a better future. Together, under the auspices of this society, I'm certain, confident that we shall advance with confidence and determination towards a prosperous Africa. It is therefore with a profound sense of responsibility and great optimism that I, as the humble representative of the government and people of Ghana and the United Kingdom, and on behalf of all stakeholders and partners, officially launch the Ghana Scholarly Society and its first conference. And as we mark this historic moment, let us all commit ourselves to the ideals of the society, not only in words, but through our actions and collaboration. Let this not be an event to be mentioned in the footnotes of history. Let today mark a process that leads to transformation. Transformation of an Africa which is driven by knowledge, innovation, shared commitment to prosperity, and last, but by no means least, integrity and character. So as we look to the future, let us reaffirm our commitment to the values that have always underpinned our partnership: excellence, innovation, and collaboration. And together, let us continue to strive for a world where knowledge is pursued without boundaries, in advancing research and innovation for the betterment of our society. And my tour of duty will be ending by the end of October. But be certain that the Ghana High Commission is knocking at the doors of the Ghana Scholarly Society, because it will certainly be part of my handing over notes to my successor. So that you will definitely be part of the transformation process in Africa and Ghana. You know, I've been in public service for such a long time. Started politics in 92, 25. I said that even some of the people who were students at the time when I was member of parliament have become PhDs now. But I ask myself, all these years, as a person, what have I achieved? I don't know. So you should always be asking ourselves as individuals, as scholars. No, because you can say you have achieved something when you have positively contributed to the transformation of individual, community, or nation. So, as scholars, as I always ask those I meet, there are a lot of Ghanaian academics, programming students, they are math, they get their people say, look, what do you think is the purpose of your degree? Your purpose is to contribute to the transformation of your community, your country. And this society, I believe, has set itself the task of contributing to the transformation of Ghana and Africa. I wish you well. I wish you a successful conference. But let your commitment that has led to the flourishment of the society be seen in the future. I thank you very much.
I think that was, for me, you can look at it now. Thank you. Now the society is officially launched. It's time for us to hear our first plenary speaker, the person of Professor Richard New. Known him for some years, fine academic, very serious individual, and also committed to excellence. It is my honor to please welcome, to put your hands together, our applauding for
Thank you very much, Kweku, for those nice words said about me. And I would like to take this opportunity as well to kindly welcome all of you as well to the School of Management at Oxford University. I have been given this huge task to give the first plenary on the conference theme, which is how we as academics can contribute to the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals in Africa through multidisciplinary research and engagement. And so what I will attempt to do over the next few minutes, 20 to 25 minutes, will be to touch a bit more on the Sustainable Development Goals, look at what has happened over the few years, and then try to look at where we can go with this as Africans. Look at what the opportunities there are as Africans, as academics, and as governments, as corporate bodies. How can we come together to find solutions? And then towards the end, I will then zero in on some research work that are emerging in the area of Sustainable Development Goals, sustainability, and the opportunities that we can engage with, particularly as researchers that are working on various topics. How can we better develop ideas in those areas? So that is my task for the next 25 minutes. So we've been hearing about the Sustainable Development Goals. And these were developed, to succeed the Millennium Development Goals after the expiration of the Millennium Development Goals, when they realized that they were not meeting the targets. Now, the process of establishing the Sustainable Development Goals took over 3 years. By corporate bodies, by politicians, by governments, by academics, working together collaboratively to come up with these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And somebody refers to them as wicked problems that we face today. Wicked problems because they are very complex. Very, very complex to solve. And we cannot solve them by working in silos. We need to collaborate to be able to solve those problems. And so these Sustainable Development Goals were unanimously adopted by many countries, 193 countries around the world who committed. And we have seen a series of events, series of meetings over the years to try to recommit themselves to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And we can see the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, starting with poverty, and ending with partnerships for the goals. I know I've been listening to His Excellency and the Dean, Peku. They've touched on some of these sustainable development goals and how it is important for all of us to commit to work collaboratively to achieve these goals. And particularly for the continent of Africa, I would say. I mean, you'll soon be seeing our performance as a continent on many of these indices: poverty, hunger, health, and so on and so forth. How are we performing? How are we performing? How can we improve our performance? What would be our role, individual and collective roles, in ensuring that we move from where we are to where we want to be as Africans? What is the African that we want to see in the next few years? And reaching there will involve us committing to solving the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the first one, which is poverty, reducing poverty, is aligned to some of the key issues that were also identified by the World Economic Forum in 2016, just immediately after the release of the SDGs. The World Economic Forum also came up with top 10 global risk around the world. And one of the top one was food security. Food security, which aligns with poverty reduction as well as no hunger. Now, Sanka mentioned the current top risk today for the next 2 years. And I thought he had seen my slides, actually. But that was 2016. These were the top global challenges. Today, it is misinformation and disinformation. But that doesn't mean that hunger and poverty has gone. You will see later on that it is still an important issue. And going forward, it's going to even be a much more dire issue for all of us, and particularly for Africa. Why do I say so? Because it's projected that by 2050, the world is going to feed 9.7 billion mouths. 9.7 billion mouths. 3.3 billion of that will be in Africa. 3.3 billion of that will be in Africa. And if we think about the situation we are facing as countries, it will mean more pressure on resources. It will mean we providing food for these 3.3 billion people. What are some of the things we can do to make sure that when the time comes, people will not be hungry? The projection is that majority of Africans will be in more poverty by then if we don't do anything drastic. Again, global warming is another important issue that has engaged many people's minds. And it's estimated that weather-related economic loss events have increased and will continue to increase. How do we resolve that? And finding solutions to these global challenges also provides avenues for, let's say, economic returns, from my understanding. And then there is this issue of gender equality. I know from studies that have been published in corporate governance, in business, in other areas, gender equality is decreasing. It's decreasing, but very slowly. But if you look at some of the issue of gender equality, or should I say diversity issues, especially in our context of Africa, It is much more complex.
No.
It is very, very complex. And it is the duty of us, as academics, as businesses, engage with each other to find solutions to the issue of gender diversity, gender equality. And then global health. Again, Africa is considered to be performing not very well when it comes to healthcare delivery. And the cost of healthcare delivery is considered to be quite high in Africa, where people are not earning that much. So how can we transform? Is there a possibility of e-health? Those in the healthcare area, how can we develop solutions, new areas, new ideas to ensure that we transform our healthcare systems? So, the progress that has been made in regard to the Sustainable Development Goals from the time they were launched in 2015 to 2019, the idea was that the progress was quite minimal. And therefore, this is the decade for all of us to put our hands together and work harder in order to make sure that we achieve that. And that is why they term it the decade of action. Now, with that, there are other issues that keep emerging that are also making it difficult for us as academics, as corporate bodies, as governments and institutions to effectively deliver some of the solutions. And one of the recent ones is COVID-19. There are other issues like tensions and conflict, geopolitical tensions around the world that are all causing a bit of problems for countries as well as for business. So again, we need to ask ourselves, with all these challenges that are emerging, what is our role? How can we effectively contribute our might, our widow's might, to making the change that we need to make? Do we sit back, or do we put our hands to the plow and then work towards it? Now, building on Professor Sankar's view there, the World Economic Forum suggested that besides the top 10 challenges, risks that the world faces in the next 2 years, for the next 10 years, the world is going to face much severe challenges in other areas, which are very much in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. And that all focus on the environmental aspect. Climate change, environmental pollution, degradation, and so on and so forth. So extreme weather events, critical change to air systems, biodiversity loss, and ecosystem collapse, natural resource shortages. These would be the top 4 risks or challenges in 10 years' time. What would be our role in ensuring that we provide solutions in making these challenges at the time, when the time comes? Now, I'll turn my attention now to Africa and the performance of Africa on a number of these SDG goals. And I'll take the first one. Currently, the UNDP Human Development Reports suggest that from the study they undertook, they identified that out of 1.1 billion people that live in sub-Saharan Africa, 53 534 million of them live in poverty. Think about that. Out of 1.1 billion people, that half. That half. And we need to move away. And just think about it. If this is the case now, and by 2050, we are going to have, currently we are 1.1 billion, and in 10 years, by 2050, we're going to be 3.3 billion people needing to be fed. Will we be able to provide solutions, provide enough food and basic needs for people? So this is a huge challenge for all of us to think about. This is a huge challenge for all of us to think about. Again, they identified that 566 million people of the 1.1 billion people they surveyed are children under 18 years who live in poverty. And these will be the ones that will be taken over from us. And we need to make sure that we find solutions to build them. So now, in terms of that, what can we do as multidisciplinary researchers? Which areas can we come together? And I'm suggesting that perhaps areas like economics, sociology, public health, environmental science, we need to come together. These are not just the only areas. Okay? Work together to find the root causes of poverty and deal with it. Again, the next one, zero hunger. And I'll just put the map of the world and how each region performs. From what you can see, again, we stand out as a continent. Majority of the countries that are undergoing hunger, where people are undergoing hunger, in Africa. Okay, and the suggestion is that if nothing is done, 58 countries will fail to reach a low level of hunger by 2030. So again, these are the dire situations. These are the issues that we have to contend with and find solutions to them. And again, as multidisciplinary researchers, perhaps areas like food security, agricultural science, climate science, economics, nutritional studies could be some of the areas that we could come together to find solutions to how we can overcome hunger. Again, we will go to health. I know individual countries, as His Excellency has mentioned, perform quite okay in terms of some of the indices, poverty, health. But overall, again, our region is, again, performing relatively poorly when it comes to healthcare delivery and quality of health for our people. And the question we need to keep asking ourselves in this scenario is, what are we doing? How can we find solutions? And I'm just raising these issues for all of us to think about. Today, throughout the conference and after the conference, it is important that we put ourselves in that we need to find solutions for these things today and for our future generations, because that is the essence of sustainability. That is the essence. Feeding ourselves today and leaving the world a better place for our future generations. So achieving universal health coverage is key for all of us. Then gender gap. I've already mentioned this, but one of the issues I want to point out here is that at times, although governments have policies that seek to bridge the gap, the gender gap, we have certain practices, certain customs that we need to look into. For example, in some communities, in some African countries, women cannot own a land. They cannot own a land, no matter how economical or economic they are in terms of being industrious. They cannot. Which means we are alienating a larger proportion of our human resources from cultivating the land. What is our role in making sure that we overcome some of these things? Again, think about education. And always, when I'm thinking about it, I always reflect back to the time when the hundreds of girls were kidnapped in the northern part of Nigeria because of education, because they were going to school. And those are the realities. What can we do to make sure that we put in solutions to reduce the issue of inhibiting women from active engagement in economic activities, as well as holding relevant positions and pursuing their education as well as their ambitions and aspirations. Now, the next thing is environmental degradation and pollution.
No.
This is one of the key things. For many years, we've seen oil companies in everybody's country and in many African countries exploring oil, exploring gold, diamonds. At times, it leads to conflicts. We tend to see the environment damaged, and they are not sustainably exploited. And as academics, as corporations and our governments, we need to think about the healthcare implications for our people, and also the impact it's having on the environment and the people. I read a document called Environmental Genocide recently. I don't know if there's anyone who has seen that. And it really touched my heart. When you go and Google it and read that. For many, many, many years, decades, you have an oil company drilling, polluting the environment. The people in that community can no longer get clean water to drink. They cannot get clean lands to even cultivate food. They're dying as a result of the pollution. So what is our role in all of this? Our water bodies are being polluted from mining, unsustainable mining activities. So these are some of the things we need to think about and ensure that as academics we speak out and we find solutions. We work with the businesses and policymakers to find solutions to address some of these things. It is also suggested that urbanization is becoming an important issue. And some of the urban, the cities in Africa, Accra is one of them, Lagos is one of them. They are regarded as the most populous cities, and that many people are moving to these urban areas. That will put pressure on facilities, that put pressure on infrastructure, and also lead to more congestion and pollution. And so urbanization is something that governments also need to think about how to depopulate the cities for the next few years. Now, I presented a picture of some of those SDG goals to us. It is not all that gloom and gloom. There is a business side to it. There is a business side, a business opportunity that When we find solutions, it will generate returns. And these are some of the solutions, the benefits. According to the Business and Sustainable Development Commission, they suggest that the SDG goals, if we find solutions to them, it would at least contribute about $12 trillion a year to global economy. So again, that is stimulating economic growth, providing employment for many people. Again, the expectations are on the potential in 4 economic systems together they represent 60% of the real economy. So that's food and agriculture. And we have very good land. We have fertile land in Africa that we can really make good use of. Again, it is identified that percent of the identified market opportunities would arise from market hotspots located in developing countries. Again, like the phrase when somebody said, this time is Africa's time. And this is what it means. Making use of our resources and turning it to something that will help us solve the economic development goals in terms of food and reduction of poverty and hunger. And so companies should make sustainable development the core of their business strategy. Again, I could digress into another thing, but that is one of the things that companies need to make sure that they are honest when reporting the sustainable activities and they're not window dressing or greenwashing the sustainability activities. Now, in terms of carbon capture, there is also benefit there. Right? Solutions to deal with the climate issue, again, it's suggested that it will create over 700, it will create a lot of jobs annually, generate 26 trillion economic benefits, and prevent 200,000 deaths, premature deaths from air pollution. So again, look at the benefits. So the efforts in achieving the SDG goals will also generate a lot of economic benefit, health benefits for all of us. So what does that mean? It means we need to work together. Okay? The old practice or model of businesses or individuals saying it is my effort, I need to maximize my return as much as possible, would no longer hold going forward. Because this is not of your business, of the country, of individual communities depend on us working together. It depends on us working together. And so the new model is collaboration. We need to come together to make sure that we don't damage the planet. We provide solutions to save it. In a recent paper that was published on the African free trade area and how it can serve as a lens to stimulate research activities. The study identified that sustainability issue was one of the things that is minimally explored within Africa, within the African free trade area. And so what I'm trying to signal is it gives us a huge opportunity, especially the African free trade area. It allows us to come together as Africans, to break the barriers, to work together, to make sure that we find solutions that will help address the issue of poverty and so on and so forth. So, multidisciplinary research is therefore very important. It's essential for us address the sustainable development goals if we work together, bringing the strengths from each areas. And I'm suggesting some of these. I will be biased because I'm an international business scholar and strategy scholar. That's why you may see some of the topics that I'm suggesting here to be more focused on international business. But that tells us that you can bring your expertise, and let's look at how we can provide solutions. We can stimulate and enhance knowledge in addressing these wicked issues that we face, wicked and complex issues that we face. So in terms of economic sustainability, I'm looking at the triple bottom line regards to sustainability. Economic sustainability, we could look at the impact of investments, MPI on poverty alleviation, then value creation for stakeholders through international business. And I was at the top, particular top, whereby the issue of value chain, sustainability within the value chain was highlighted, particularly in Africa, where the people within the supply chains face the real issues, but the company and at the headquarters don't understand the sustainability issues at the lower level. And so it's important that we bring all those issues up. Again, we could look at international business, knowledge spillovers, and regional development. When it comes to environmental sustainability, we're looking at resource exploitation, environmental degradation, waste management, circular economy, and ethical consumption in international markets. That when it comes to sustainable social sustainability, we're looking at gender and diversity issues. Again, social entrepreneurship, CSR, ethics in business management, looking at human trafficking, workplace abuse, modern slavery. So these are some of the things that I've just decided to highlight that we could think about them as possible research areas to explore as multidisciplinary researchers and find solutions to the challenges that we have. So thank you very much for your time. Okay, I will just wait and see if anybody has a comment or a question. Comment to make or a question. Yes? The lady. Yeah.
I'll make a comment.
Yeah.
I think I'm hugely inspired by your presentation. And as an academic in the UK, I came here when I was 13, and I'm still here. But to have an opportunity to give back to our continent and to our country is inspiring. And to have the know-how through what you just said. I'd also like to say that with the current UK problem with universities restructuring, some of our colleagues will be affected and feeling despondent. I think it's really time that we do something quickly before we lose the brains to other industries, because some people will be looking out of the university sector. But we need our brains. We range from Ghana to contribute to the UK. Now the UK might not want us in our universities. We need to do something quickly so that we maintain and we have the capacity, capability building to move forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There is the hand of the back. Okay.
Prof, thank you for giving us a very wonderful overview. I was wondering what your thoughts are in relation to the role of political class. Now that Honorable is around, maybe he can also share some light on it. Are politicians just facilitators? Because when you talk about allocating resources, whether for education, poverty, eradication, or whatever, there are competing needs. So what would be the most efficient role of politics in terms of allocating these resources equitably?
Okay, so let me clarify, get the question clearly before I can respond. So when you talk about resource allocation, what do you mean specifically?
Yes, so I meant you have all these 17 goals, then you are trying to fulfill them.
Okay.
Obviously, if you talk about education, for example, there are challenges there: employment inequality, gender bias, and so on in our society. The problems or the issues, as you call them, wicked problem, they are multifaceted. And every government at any point in time has got limited resources in terms of allocating them. So what will be the most efficient way? Because ultimately our politicians have wielded a lot of power in terms of allocating these resources. So, especially all the okay.
So let His Excellency respond.
No, yes, I think really it is electing politicians through research know the options available. That's all it matters. Get in allocating resources. The politician needs the advice. But of course, they're not bound to take your advice. So it's important that research also feeds into decision making. Because at any one time, everything is important. For instance, I advise that this year we shouldn't give scholarship to anyone. Yes, because of our financial difficulty and the strain and stress we're putting on students on Ghana government scholarship. That's a decision for a politician. That's going to give you the choice to make. So for me, it all ends with the politician. Madam is talking about imminent loss of brains. It's a political decision. That's why they have, what do you call it, manifestos, to enable citizens to make a choice as to which politician will make decisions that they consider best for them. So it's also important for scholars to also get involved in the murky world of politics, so that with their knowledge and expertise, they can then make informed choices.
I think that scholars need to become practitioners as well, right? You can't just keep writing papers and doing your research. You are reading it, so if you are not reading it, you're pushing citations, you're pushing whatever you're pushing, and then you hope that the politician can just interpret what you've done. You hope that the politician find time to go to the right places to find your research and implement them. That's a job. That's a job that will never happen. So I think that we should think about how to aid in the implementation of our research. That's the only way the gap can be bridged. Last thought about it, I think that the founding fathers of countries that have tried were usually well studied, right? And they had a big base of people that were also well studied. I think that countries where the founding fathers were educated, but the rest of the base were not, are only to reach that. So we are that base. We are that base that I educated, we are that dreams that emulate that connect between our research and your practice.
So I think this will be the last, last two. After that, last two, we're running out of time.
That's it. The only thing that I was reflecting on, and I think this is a problem with most places, the structure, the governance, the rule of law matters to tackle every single social problem, and absolutely critical for good governance and rule of law. And that happens in not just Africa, it happens in different parts of the world as well. And then it can help alleviate conflict. Like, I was surprised, I think, because I've seen sort of the agenda 2063 in Africa, sort of street get the role going forward, right? I think it's important. You can only meet, and this is no different to a developed nation, global south to the developing nation. I think until there's really good governance, not just politics, by the way, not just government, it's by every citizen taking on, if you are to this is what we want Africa to be, and that is what the agenda is.
we take ownership. Each and every single stakeholder holds integrity principles. And I think education really creates that about living what you preach by. I think it's important, and the change of culture will affect society. And the social issues, the priorities that we might have, if we all take responsibility, hence the responsible management team is absolutely critical underpinning to solve the bigger problems of society. It applies to Africa, it applies to where the needs might vary and the urgency varies, but it comes with those collaboration in a good governance and rule of law to deal with the societal problem.
Yes, thank you. If I don't ask this question, you guys fine. And that goes to the honor. Though the conference is covering Africa, but it's country specific as well. Okay. I remember when the Honorable Party in Ghana introduced the SDGs. My first daughter was the first I bought a land out of it. You see, money that I would have spent for my daughter, I used that money and bought it and named the land after the girl. And I said, you continue to remember, when you go and become academia, you also contribute to the society. I did that. I see that it has a lot of financial stress on government. And the debate is ongoing about reviewing and I don't know I don't know what they mean by it. I want to ask the honor, if God win the party wins power again, I think we cancel it. That's my question. I mean, 3 years itself has council pay. No one can cancel it. However, if you ask me, I mean, we need to review it. And it's something that a debate that has been going on. It will be gap, right? And creativity, what did we practice now? What we all are envisaged. Let me say free board, free uniform. All right? It was to rather concentrate on encouraging community schools. All right? So that even some of the DHSs could be converted into SHS. That was the original idea. And then you will get the fleet of bus being run from the private sector, shuttling students from various communities to their community school. Okay. So secondly, it will have to be reviewed. I mean, I was Minister of Education back, and I let the education service undertake a certain refit. I had to realize that for most of the so-called category A secondary schools, parents were spending more in primary than in secondary because they were private first secondary institutions. So then why do you let everyone have it free? Why not then have a bursary scheme where a certain number of students will be private? Well, at my time, during my time as Minister of Education, that was what I said, some of the English secondary schools should be made semi-autonomous. So that you spend more on community schools than schools like Achimota and Pansapil, etc., where parents, they spend. Yes, there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them. You know. So, out for pre-SHS, it comes to stay, but certainly, and it has to be reviewed. Why? Children, when they go, they attend the day school, don't they eat breakfast at home? The idea was that for day school, give everybody one free meal. the absolute burden day. And then the rest will take care of it. So definitely it will help the youth. I mean, even the rich country like UK and America, we don't have pre-secondary education in the form that we are practicing back in that. That's a new, but it will never become. It will politically suicide.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
So my name is Mary Obi. Best Shipping is the company I work with as a general manager and the director, small and director. We started a business 10 years ago, and then we are into door-to-door services from the UK to Ghana. So we pick up from your doorstep in the UK and deliver at your doorstep in Ghana.
How did you get into business?
So it was my husband who started the business. When he did it, he got the idea when he was doing his master's at the University of Birmingham. And then he saw the need within the Birmingham community, and he started the business, and then I joined in later.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll come to that in a bit.
Sorry.
So hello everyone, I'm Celine Clausen. I do not, for those of you familiar maybe with my accent, you can hear that I'm definitely not French. I live in France. So I have not been in academia. I started off in international relations actually. And I had the opportunity to come to France. I did my PhD at this business school where I'm actually currently teaching. So I will be, I think, contributing to what I think from the educational side and what I think of what I see from the outside, you know. I think it's an opportunity for me to look at Africa and its problems from the outside, and they also have solutions saying what could work. I've seen from patterns, just one last thing I'd like to say, you know, over the years teaching to the research, teaching in this business school, my students come from all over the world. And I've seen some countries, actually developing countries, where the students come from, but I don't see many African students. Sometimes in my classes, I also hear things about Africa. And I always think it's our responsibility to tell people about Africa. We let other people tell our story. And that's a very bad thing. So I'm very happy to be here, and this is one of the reasons that I wanted to come into this conference.
So I have some small quote. So my name is Timmy. Yes, I'm CEO of Cookbooks. That's a very bad answer. And I started, I asked them how to public. And during the COVID era, and I decided to find a solution to the problem. So I enrolled in a doctorate program at the International University of Monaco. But at the point in time, I thought it really supports what I wanted to do. So I spoke to my very good friend, Mr. Belfort, who facilitated my family converting me from a DGPA to a PhD program. So I could tap into your mind and expertise. And as a businessman, I'm always looking at how best I can secretly
get to know it. So, and then I was just comparing how much I would have to pay for consultants and then the school fees. So I realized it was cheaper. The school fees was cheaper. So I got into the program in here and have all these amazing grades. Probably the rods, then extinct and scholar. So we incorporated these this year, and I'm CEO at least for now. And I'm here. So I kind of struggle between business and academia. I'm academia over a teach. It's not like academia to business. It's business that try to be academic. And I'm enjoying it.
Thank you. My name is Alfred Dawson. I'm torn between engineering, practice, and academia. In fact, I'm a member of Ghana, the Institute of Engineering, or Institution of Engineering and Technology in Ghana, where I practice, and I'm also a member of the Standard Committee, being the engineer fraternity in Ghana. And within the engineering governance, in Ghana, we also have what we call the Engineering Council that regulates the activities of engineering in Ghana. I happen also to be a member of one of the standing committees. I'm also in academia, studied in Russia, Australia, UK, and Ghana. I'm currently the dean of the School of Faculty, the School of Graduate Studies in my university, the former dean of Faculty of Engineering, and also head of the Department of Construction and Wood Department. So I'm torn between engineering practice and the academia and practice. So that's where I see my thing.
Okay, so my name is David Sapon. I'm currently a professor of strategy and organization at Aston University, Birmingham. Before then, I was a professor of strategic management at Brunel. So I actually joined the barely a year ago, and I've been a very good friend of the Ghana Scholarly Society. Also, I am the vice chair of the British Academy of Management, where I serve as the vice chair for capacity building and conference affairs, multi-teams, and all those kind of stuff. So it's a lot of work in academy. So really to have speech here, and we can have some interesting questions.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much. Thank you. As you guys can see, we've got well knowledge sat here, but we can tap into perhaps discuss the issues that we are facing. So as I said, I think it might be independent of us mainlands in an educational institution, perhaps to start with education. Yes. So with SDG 4, talks about quality of education. And with this, the aim is to try and ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Listening to some of the conversations that we had just before we went for lunch, I thought it was quite interesting because I'm one of them work talking about pre-education. As a colleague at the back talked about, and Honourable talked about the fact that this probably has to be reviewed. And he did say something that I thought was quite interesting, in the sense that even here in the UK, we do not do things freely. But then I guess my counter-argument will probably be, okay, look, we are in a position where we are in a developing country, where we need to perhaps educate the masses for us to be at a point where, education, as Professor Sambi said, can perhaps maybe eliminate a lot of the different SDGs that we have. So with that, I just wanted to perhaps maybe get your thoughts on how we can achieve this. There are several different models that people talk about, but what are your thoughts on the education SDG and how best you see this working for us as a Ghanaian society? I'll probably start with you, Dave, if that's okay. Your thoughts on this?
From my own background, I was born to parents who were basically illiterates. My dad couldn't write. My dad was a popular. We had 9 kids. I was the last guy. Very lucky to go past junior secondary school. And I would say I've been a beneficiary of the free compulsory universal basic education program. Had it not been that, I don't think I would have had an opportunity to move forward. And education is being transformative. It's something that could take people out of poverty. Really proud sitting here at the stand of a company, as I mentioned earlier on, where I had nobody to look to in terms of being moving forward with education. And here am I being given such a great opportunity to pursue my dreams. And there are millions of people in our country who basically didn't get the chance I had with free compulsory basic education, potentially because I was at the right place at the right time. Being born in Florida, in the city, which means that I had access to at least a classroom, not under a tree or whatever. But if we want to take people out of poverty, then obviously we will have to go back to the basics, strengthen our early years education, which is very important to a very large extent. We've ignored that and putting a lot of money in higher education and free SSS, which I'm not against it per se, but I personally think if we can put a lot of emphasis on our early foundation stages, which is a huge difference, that will definitely help. So it's a good call. It is something that I've benefited from, and it's something that I think the government is doing very well on, to some extent that we can strengthen and do a lot more and provide opportunity to get people out of the poverty class.
Thank you, David. Sammy, I'll come to you next, because from your business perspective, you talk about the fact that you are in business, but you are not looking further where you are back in education to learn a few things to perhaps maybe grow your business more. How do you see how this particular SDG in quality education and how that can help from a business point of view?
So, thank you. And you feel that education is very important, but I always say that the linkage is really no connection between education and industry. It's always in proper. And so I am quite fortunate that even at this my advanced stage, I'm brave enough to think that I can come and be amongst the club and try to tap into. It's like not everybody has it. I think what we should be looking for at is how to link education to practice. Because it means nothing if you are that you have more than accolade, but you're not able to transform your industry. I remember, sorry, there was a time that I started a company in Ghana. That was around the year, must have been 1999, 2000. And the problem was quality of labor, to supporting the particular venture down in itself. I was like, one thing I didn't tell you to is that I'm a politician as well. I used to be a vice chairman of the ruling party, the FDP. So I'm able to actually cross all of these fields. So someone who wanted to do business and needed people from the educational sector, they get the people who provide education to actually provide me with the kind of quality labor that I needed. I actually went into a cabinet meeting, and then I made a pitch to the government, and then got the government to bring people from the University of Ghana and certain other places who are on a national service kit. And then they actually subsidized their training so that I could get into that particular venture and help them to drive a new industry that we were creating in Ghana. But I could do it because I was very familiar with the people in government. And I remember that when I was also setting up, it required that I didn't went to Parliament. We lobbied parliamentarians to actually even amend some rules to make it possible for us to tap into academia.
A big thing that also needed to be resolved, and I wanted to see how we could resolve, was to set up certain specialized practical training centers at the university, so that what academia will do is first of all meet industry and then create very practical training programs at the university so that it could easily supply us with that leader. And just giving an example of some of the things that you have to go through if you want to hire people in Ghana. And as an entrepreneur, I tell people all the time that labor in Ghana is twice as expensive as you think it really is. Because when you bring them in, they need to develop properly, their characters have been developed, their attitudes will be developed, nothing is being developed, they've not been educated properly. Sometimes we retrain them and then bring them in and connect them. So I think education is important, yes it is. But what I see now is that education is never linked to the industry. So we keep training people and they are not needed by the industry. You find work and then the vicious cycle kind of continues.
Thank you, Sai. I think, this is one thing that we trust. We'll come back to as well, because we know, basically here based in the UK anyway, you very much know that with the elections coming up, there's talk about an industrial strategy to basically plug the gap that we see in NHS and other places. And this is what Sami is talking about, all that. Often, perhaps there are some of the things that we tend to teach at university may not necessarily be relevant for the industrial people or what they need for successful businesses. But we'll come back to that in a bit. But Sterling, you talked about the need for us to ensure that we are telling our own story and not having people perhaps maybe tell us that story. You said the course that you tend to teach on, you don't tend to have a lot of Africans on there. So from an educational point of view, how do you approach this? How are you looking to perhaps maybe address this particular issue that we tend to have?
I'm not going to pretend that I know the answers, because I think we all actually are on the same page when it comes to all our problems and the difficulties that we had about telling our story, the discourse that we have as Africans or not, and it's lacking. So when I do in class, for example, I get crazy stories, like, for example, my students will make a presentation about corporate social responsibility in Africa, but they talk about Africa as though Africa is a country. So I know that's a stereotype, but that really is unfair, and that's problematic because we don't see the richness, we don't see what's behind it, and it's our responsibility to tell the story, like I said. And so my solution would be that we need to be more vocal. We need to address, like I'm always thinking, I'm sitting outside. Every time I go back to Namibia, and my sister's at the University of Namibia, and sometimes she talks about the problems that they have at the University of Namibia. And you know what? It's in Africa, but it's the similar problems that we are facing here. So what you've just said, what my colleagues have said, we need to come together. We need to work together. It's not quite, I'm going a bit off the topic, but just, I read something that we in Africa, we every year we produce apparently 11 to 12 million jobs in total, and we are only providing jobs, only 3 million people can go because there is a mismatch. And so I think that we need to get together as stakeholders. Forums like these, we need to, I don't know, I'm just going to say it. I feel like I hear a lot of information from Ghana. I'm trying to speak for Africa, because I think we need to speak together as Africans. We can learn so much more from each other. So I'll just get straight to the point. For me, we need to get together as Africans because we can learn so much more to tell our story. And what's our story? Do we know what our story is? I don't know. And what would be the solution to that? We all need to decide. For me, I don't have a solution. We all need to decide together.
Thank you, Sterling. So I'll put this to you then, Humphrey. You heard very clearly what Sterling and Sami had to say. You are in a position to effect change. You've been the dean, and you are in a position where you can make these decisions. You can make decisions that perhaps maybe allow you to maybe review different subject areas that are taught in your university to produce the quality of graduates that will fill in the position that Sami and Sally are talking about. How do you approach this from your position of power?
Thank you very much. I would like to highlight the real situation from the line of this question. Then I'll now go into the third question, further response to it. Indeed, when you come to Ghana and most African countries, the situation is that the training institutions are there, training students for jobs that do not exist in the industry. There's a gap between the industrial requirements in terms of human capacity and requirements and competencies that they want for people who can work in the industry. And those we are training in the schools are doing something also different. So they complete their studies and there are no jobs for them. Basically, we are training people for unemployable circumstantial situation. A clear example is when you come to the construction and engineering. When we started, we found oil in Ghana. The key technical jobs included some issues like welding, underground, underwater welding, and some technical stuff. And those who have been trained in welding in Ghana cannot undertake underwater welding activities. So we have to rely on expatriates who came and they were taking big money with very juicy work conditions for them. In the construction sector, the popular finishing, we have POP and others in Ghana. Those we train in Ghana cannot really undertake proper POP proficiency activities. So the work that are available for people, we are trained people who cannot perform those works. So it is contributing to unemployment in the country. Now a lot of expatriates are around to undertake some of these projects for us. What we have found is that we need to bridge the gap between academia and the industry. That's a critical thing. Now I'm linking into the question. When you go to China, they have a system where every industry, organization, a factory, or whatever, whether it's a car manufacturing plant or whatever, before you can operate, it's by law policy. We should contribute to educational practices. So you should have some collaboration, partnership with some institution, a school, where they train students for that purpose. Now even build a prototype factory over there, where the students who are learning that discipline will have some practical experience over there, and that industry should send experts to the school to support the students. And they also have what we call workplace experience learning, internship, where students will leave the school for some months, go to that industry to go and practice. So by the time they complete their study, they know exactly the practices in the industry, and they can fit into the industry without any retraining. So the situation is that we need to bridge that gap between training institutions and the industry. So we are now coming up, or we have started a system that is we call, that's educational, that's competency-based training, where we want to train students with the focus of what the industry requires. So it's the industry expert who will come in to tell us that these are the competencies we need from people who have been trained in your universities or in your schools, so that we can employ them. And we use that to become our curriculum, build our curriculum, and therefore we can train students fit in that situation. So we have introduced what we call workplace experience learning. Most of the institutions that want to go by that principle to support their students in terms of practical training. Indeed, all that I'm saying is that we need skills training and skills development of our students. We need to give them skills that are appropriate, that can let them work as a completion of their programs after graduating. If we don't do that and we continue with how we are training, we will continue to train students who come out and cannot do anything. Because if
I'm an industry person seated and you come for a job, I ask you, what can you do? Practical, that's what I want to know. What can you do? If you can't tell me or justify that indeed I can perform this, do this, that pertains to what I want in my industry, then I can't employ you. So we are now looking at our curriculum, redesigning our curriculum, make it fit the competency-based training. And the focus of our education system should also be on skills development. We are running a lot of programs in Ghana and some African countries that is, at the end, our students cannot fit into any practical. I remember when I was a student, I was at Polytechnic, Technical Institute of Polytechnic. We had adopted LVTI, that is the British curriculum for our construction students. And we were learning about chimney construction. Indeed, chimney is not in Ghana. So after I've learned all the chimney construction, what about this that? So we're learning things that should not applicable to our environment. So we now have established what we call academic industry council or committee in each area of specialization. That when we want to we take our curriculum, it is reviewed every 4 or 5 years. So we have to bring experts from all these industry association in that area, professional bodies in academia, those in academia, we come together. So we now will design a curriculum that will be fitted for our students to go through so that they can be employable. So we basically have to look at the curriculum, the design of our curriculum, and let it gear towards what the industry wants. And if we're able to train our students to conform to that, then it will become employable.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Humphrey. Mary, from a businesswoman's perspective, obviously you do employ people to run your business, you to deal with logistical aspects. I know your business is based in the UK, but what are your experiences with regards to this? Do you have similar issues with regards to perhaps maybe the gap that we are discussing here?
And I have, skills development out there. The still back home from me. I think that's the education, whatever we are learning in school over here, if you look at those doing, for example, they are nursing, they go to school for a bit and then they go and do their practical experience. So everyone comes out and they got it all around you because you've got education and you've got a practical experience as well. So I think if there is a discussion on gender and curriculum, that's what they have to be looking at, to give practical experience to the student, whatever area they are studying. So it shouldn't be all school, university in school. They should go out there and have some work experience, which will help them when you come out.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, go on.
I also think that we leave behind some students. We talk about industry and the relationships. But there are so many students that we don't include, or young people, and I won't say students. For example, what about you could create industries for those people that are industries that are not there? I'm talking about creative industries. We always have, when I grew up, my parents wanted to be a doctor and an engineer and then this and that, And my sisters were artists. And they were like, this seems like, they're not very clever, which is terrible. But it's in many of our families, these things exist all over Africa. I'm sure on other continents as well. But I'm thinking, because we are not including it, because we are only concentrating on those industries that we have already, we are also behind in other industries. We should take those talents and create industries and provide opportunities for our young people, because when I go back to Namibia and I saw all those artists and they look down upon or whatever, just because they don't have opportunities, it's our loss, really. Because when I come to France and I see those creative industries, especially now with artificial intelligence, with technology and all of these things, they create their own things, but our students or our young people don't have similar opportunities.
Thanks for that, Sterling. Right, I'll take a couple of questions from the audience before I move on to the next subject area. Okay. Yes.
My question is, the government or the people did know a while before, or even when they found it, they did well in terms of something like that. So why wasn't there an investment into training of new skills or new, to invest into that new skill technology? When we're coming, David Ware was highlighting Bradford, and he said something, maybe it wasn't in that word, the downfall of Bradford from what it used to be was as a result of the fact that they decided that they were going to be doing things as it was the old way, by not investing to the new skill that were coming about. So as a result of that, they got left behind. So new technological skills. But so that same question was coming to me. How come we didn't invest into giving that skill, to reskill them in terms of, so at least we are not having to invest into new people who are coming from us of a youth, topping up what they already have and trying new skill. That's one aspect of that. And then the second one goes to the issue that our honorable lady on the right was raising about best skills. Because what I was thinking in this country, if you talk about nursing, the NMC has a great aspect in terms of they determining what curriculum has to be taught in school for the competence of the ones that they are set. I'm a member of the British Psychological Society. We get the same thing. They are very invested in terms of you cannot practice under the British Psychological Society without you having to do a course that they are determining how it's going to be run. So why don't we have similar things? So there seems to be a sort of sector disconnect where the industry sector is not having an input in the sort of curriculum that has to be driven from the training to our area. Why? Why is that not getting resolved in that way? What are the issues?
Okay, thank you. We'll take a couple more and I'll come and have you guys stop. We've got your thing. Go on, explain.
Hold it.
I want to make a plug for early education because I think it's absolutely crucial. Now, if you go to a shop in Ghana and you're in Accra, you want to buy something and it's a long thing, you put out a huge calculator to calculate the amount. But standing there, those of us who are ancient and who were educated in the earlier days can do it in our hands just like that. And there was a situation where they punched the wrong numbers into the calculators. And I could see when the number came, I said, this is wrong. And said, there was a big argument. And I said, well, no, I did this in my head. So I used the calculator, and the calculator is right. I said, no, but you punched it wrong. The point is, in order to develop and get people ready for skills, as I said, we must lay a strong foundation. We must lay a strong foundation for early education. And we must also train the trainers. Because in the past, again, teacher training schools abound, and there were the centers. I'm not sure, I've been out of Ghana for a while, so I don't know how well it's working. But what I know is that there are lots of private schools with kids being taught by untrained teachers. And these are trained schools, teachers are charging them lots, but the output that you get from them is very low. So it is back to the basics, I think. It is back to the basics to ensure that policy strengthens the foundational education. It is back to the basics also in ensuring that teachers are trained. There's no point. The worst thing is to have an education that is limited.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a dangerous. I think there's a statement. A dangerous thing. I have to keep it on the pole. It's a dangerous person. So laying the foundations, teacher training, and focusing to some extent on basic education, arithmetic, reading, those things in the early years lays the foundation for the work that you're actually talking about is still
Thank you. There were a few hands at the back before.
If you are going to approach the industries, just like the Chinese example, to contribute back to the academia, so that you can also design a proper curriculum to fit into that in the tone. In the case of I'm a businessman as well. If you increase, it means that you need more money for what you are talking about. You need more money for labs and other things for it to be properly trained the students. If you levy them too much, because of poverty, they will not be able to pay for these fees. If you go to the industries, they are already overburdened by taxes. You plan for a container, maybe you are bringing a container that costs about, say, $6,000. No right-thinking businessman will make that agreement without making a provision for a clearance. So you know these containers coming, dollar to city rate is X amount. So you need this X amount, say 5,000, 10,000, whatever figure that you have already made provision for it. By the time the container arrived, the dollar has jumped from 10 cedis to 13 cedis. I just want to be practical. 13 cedis. Then, as a country and a politician, Mr. Graham is here, I know very well, he's a politician. These politicians has benchmark the duty to $1. So while you have made a provision to clear your container, it is X amount, then you are supposed to add up to be able to clear the container. These are the same industries that have been burning up all these tasks. How can we, otherwise that would have been a brilliant idea. You go to the industries, present your keys so that they can also contribute something. These are the industries who are already overburdened by these tasks. And then you as an academic, if you raise the fees too, the parents might not be able to pay. How then do we balance the two? That is for you folks.
You touched on when Ghana discovered oil and didn't have the expertise to fill in the gaps. I would say it's political. As a country, when we discovered oil, it's an emerging hydrocarbon economy. We didn't have laws in that respect, in that aspect. So all that you could have done was just waited, made laws, which other countries have done. I've seen or have read other emerging hydrocarbon economies who are discovering oil and all that. And of course, because they are not solved, they decide, okay, let the oil stay there until we pass the laws. But what of developing countries, because of, should I say, I don't think I'll be planning to use the word because some of us are maybe selfish, or just doing things at our own will. When Ghana discovered that we didn't have all these engineers and all that, and President Kufuor was just about to leave office. So all that President could have done, okay, let's wait, let's pass our laws. Let's even equip our own citizens, stop bringing people outside expertise and train them double. I think if that had been done, then all of us would have gotten enough for it all. And really tried what we have now, when we look at the dynamics now, I mean, I think other countries are taking this decision and it's helping. So I think going back to Ghana, I think if maybe we should, going back to the issue, if maybe we should, I think we should, when we are lucky to have discovered any other thing, then maybe we should have just waited, pass the laws, ensure that we equip our citizens so bringing people abroad to come and work.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think points have been made about welding and growing up in Ghana. The policies were not too great for these technical-based courses. I mean, if you look at somebody who was qualified as a welder and employed, this goes to the industry captains as well. How much are they willing to pay someone who was with a highly skilled with a welding qualification? I mean, if I'm raising kids in Ghana, I'd rather get them to study law rather than study welding. But we look at the comparison. If you employ a welder in this country, you know how much you got to pay the welder for his or her service. So I think it's one of the things that we need to consider, or we need to serve as a pressure group to get government to look at policies. And the industry expects as well look at salary scales. Probably if you start matching salary scales of welders, those with technical skill, to those of chief executives, then we could get educational institutions, we could get educators creating programs for those highly skilled areas. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So this is just a brief contribution. I believe that if the unemployment situation in Ghana, will be solved, or something could be done about it, the laws and regulatory institutions in Ghana might work. For example, pharmacists in Ghana now have they come out with a Plan B program, okay? And in as much as that is good, and they learn a lot of clinical stuff, which during my days I didn't get to learn, I believe they are not able to put it into practice. In fact, there are some pharmacists in Ghana who have no jobs. Why? Because there are medical sellers who are supposed not to sell some medicines, but because people at the Pharmacy Council, the regulator, could marry with them, they do sell them, and community pharmacies who are supposed to employ pharmacists for them to put all these 6 years, 30 days learned into practice, they are not able to, they cannot pay them. So there are pharmacists, can you imagine going to some for 6 years, and then you are not able to put it into practice? So these are the problems we have. In my opinion, instead of them doing the Farm D program, for us to say we got doctor of pharmacy, they should rather strengthen the institutions so that there will be, roles for them. What's the point? Having Farm D, if you get selling paracetamol or aspirin, you cannot input all the clinical knowledge you've learned into practice. There is no point. And this will cut across all sectors of the economy. The laws simply don't work.
Thank you. And I think there is one constant was question about with regards to the rule of law, making sure we stick. So just one last one, please. Just go on.
Universities are set up for specific objectives. Some to training, some for engineering, some for that and all. But now we see a school, university that is meant to training fields, being education, being something that was not part of the objective for setting up that event. Not by long, government converted 10 polytechnics into technical universities. Now, when they were converted, there was something that was out of the conversion. The lecturers could, how do I put it, train with not upgraded, but then like salary schemes and all that. So they had to go on strike so that they can be equal with the traditional universities. Okay, if you want to be equal with traditional universities, then what is the requirement to lecture at the traditional university? PhD. So lecturers at the various technical universities actually go there the PhDs so that they can be equal with the traditional university. But the idea of setting up technical universities, first talk about competency based. So the government is very well. They have changed all the technical universities and technical institutions with tools and equipment. So what some of us were expecting is that we were talking about trainers, skill training. What about the trainer himself? But the trainer is chasing after PhD. It is a research-based technique. But we are training people on transform. So those machines are there. Government has spent millions of dollars purchasing these machines. But who to use them to train the student? They cannot. That is the issue. They are doing very, very, very well. But okay, we are focusing on equating technical universities to traditional universities. Traditional universities are now doing things that they are not supposed to do, and we are struggling, competing with each other. and leaving a strong gap for students to finish, and they will still come back and chase for jobs. And these are things that I think we need to actually.
Thank you. So one last comment, and then I'll come back to you, panel, to address some of the questions, and then we can conclude on that. That's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your submissions. There appears to be a consensus among all your submissions that there is a public engagement between academia and practice. And most of you attributed these to pedagogical flaws, lack of practice, and leadership issues. Now my question, considering the context in which we are discussing this, which sector should start the conversation? Because it appears like sometimes when we gather here, academics will shift the blame to industry. When industry players also gather, they shift it to academics. Who should start this conversation? Second, it also appears that the example cited by Prof. When you made mention of the case of China, it appears that the case of China is framed within policy, national policy. Now, does Ghana have any form of policy that is driving this conversation, or is just a piecemeal approach by different departments? I think somebody mentioned University of Education having started something. You also mentioned engineering having started something. What is the scope of this conversation? Is everybody doing their own thing, or is going to be a national conversation? I just want to know some of these issues.
Thank you very much, Divine. I think I'll probably start with you, Sammy, because I didn't realize you were a politician anyway, so I think I'll put you on the spot, because I think there were a few questions that were directed from a governmental point of view. So if you can address some of the pointers that were raised, and then I'll head back to you, Mary, as businesswoman as well, and then we'll go to academics back to Ken. All right.
So first of all, politician. I think it to be suicidal. As a politician, if I find oil, by being here, that I can find oil, and there's an election coming up, you ask me to wait. There's absolutely no way I'm going to wait. I'm going to strike that oil. I'm going to campaign on that oil. It's up to the person who follows me to decide on the kind of policy he or she will set up to provide the permanent setup to drive the thing. I want to win votes. That's what it is. So it doesn't make sense to me as a politician that I should wait when I see it. Even when it's not there, I try to tell it that it's there. Then it's there. So there's absolutely no way I'm going to do that. Because it's crazy. Because as we went around, I just realized that, my goodness, we need collaboration. I am benefiting because I am a politician, I'm a businessman, and I'm an academic wannabe. So I'm kind of seeing the various perspectives. It doesn't really work. I used to be the chairman of the MPP for the Greater Accra region a while ago. And I remember we were going for an election, and the mayor of the city was trying to relocate people from a place of slum, Abu Bush, to a market he had built. And it was a good thing. I mean, I knew it was a good thing. But there was political pressure because the people who would give me votes were complaining. So I went and made T-shirts for them to demonstrate against my own mayor because I wanted votes. So a politician's profit counts in votes. And we have only 4 years. We don't have time. So it doesn't matter what you see. I'm not going to listen as a politician. So, as a business, as a businessman, I'm also motivated by profits. I want money. And unless it makes sense to me that I can make money to be able to sustain my business, there's absolutely no way I'm going to fund anything I would do. It doesn't profit me to fund it. Unless, of course, maybe I take some money out of my accounts and give it to you as charity. And it's not really charity because I'm going to write stuff in taxes. It still has to profit me for me to do those things. So you must understand the way the business mind also thinks. Because it's about profit. And as I came into academia, I also realized that academics are motivated by writing. And like Sanka said, they just put them on the shelves and they gather dust. So you also have your own motivation. And I want to write, I want to publish, I want to publish, I want to publish. And I find the level strange. And I've come into a world where I just writing. but I'm going to present something here. And I just took it from my academic journal. You know, the solution that the world wants. I was just sitting down there gathering dust, and I had to pick it up, develop a framework, you know, architect it, come up with a prototype, and I've commercialized it. Because I'm a businessman, I don't make things sit there and that's me. So it is collaboration and people understanding how each and every one of these sectors really think. You need to approach people in that manner before you can get everyone to collaborate. So it's everybody's fault. But what we need to do is to sit down and talk to each other and collaborate. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Let me end by giving you a practical example as a businessman. I started a company in Ghana. I grew it from negative. I keep telling people that from an internet cafe in Dansoba, those who know Dansoba. And I grew it into the biggest private company in Ghana. We kept 2,600 employees, like ACS, BPS. And my journey, tells a story of how you move from your ideation, and then you get into the politics of it, and then you need to deal with the legal, regulatory, environment, and other stuff. And I realized it was because of my unique background experience, that's how I was able to make that happen. Because it got to a point where I realized that I needed a certain quality of labor that Ghana just did not have. We just didn't have it. And I went in to hire people because it required business process. It required people who would type and at a certain speed and with some quality. Because what I hear is skills, skills, skills. But what you miss is we lack something that is very important that I believe that the West has and we don't have, but we don't even recognize it. People's attitudes, their character, their approach to things. It is to me the greatest asset you should have. You can teach people to read, write, and type, but if they don't have the right attitude, it's not going to work. So we started this company. I grew the company to about 300. We were struggling, but I needed labor so bad that I went to pick people from the ministries and people from government secretariat, people who were existing and could type. But what I'd done, the mistake I made was I'd imported some very wrong character and practices into the company. So we just hit a brick wall. And then we were trying to demonstrate the strikes and then other things. So I came in and fired about 300 people from the company. I just fired them. And then I started again. And I went for people who have not gone to these traditional schools to learn the various disciplines. I picked people right from the streets. There's a girl, a Kayayu girl, who had SSS training, and it's still in debris. I picked them up, moved them into a facility that my church and I have put together at our employment resource center. There is no this. And we trained them in character, how to service UX companies, because we're processing insurance claims. You needed to be sharp. You needed to come to work when you are supposed to come. You need to deliver. You need to produce. You don't need to protest. You need to work. And when you work, we'll pay you because we're measuring keystrokes. It's as simple as that. You know, so we put them there and I ran them through. And later, I grew the thing to 2,600. There are so many things that we need to do, and it's quite practical. It's not about learning to read and write and those. It's about the guy's attitude to work. See? Because I think he's doing a favor by coming to work. It's dangerous. You know, they need to get rid of those people. So, it's multifaceted. The man who your school was named after, he used to be my very good friend. One day he called me and said, "Sorry, you know the problem with Ghana and industry and big sum too? It is because in our history, we always used to destroy businesses. Anytime a government came into power, they worked as a businessman. So I find it as there were no businessmen to pass on that tradition." And he compared Ghana to Nigeria. And he said, you see, in Nigeria, they always, no matter what happened, they preserve businesses. And that is why Nigerian businesses are doing very well. You know, they're able to grow, they become generational, and we are not where we are. That's why Nigerians are producing people to support their industry, because it was there. I think we should look at that too when we're having our discussion. We're breaking the chain. You know, we don't have the industries that has been there for a while and have actually documented needs, So the established to be able to talk to academia. Look what the chamber was looking. And academics now are realizing that if you want to make money, you need to get into politics too. So they're also running away from there, and everything is being lost. So I think that's what I'm saying as someone who has been right there at the middle of it. And I do understand that the only way out is for us to engage to talk, but we must understand each other. Otherwise, we keep talking to our heads.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. I think it's quite refreshing how the politician that's very straight, isn't it? Says it as it is. So thank you for that, Mary, please.
Hello. Yeah, so I was fortunate. I attended the University of Cape Coast and then Accra Polytechnic. I was fortunate whilst at school to have work experience on the side. So at recent course, I knew somebody from there, and I think that really helped me. And over here at first class, where I went, we have students coming over for work experience, which I think can be copied by our country. So even if people from GCSE, they come and they have a work plan, what they're supposed to learn. And then we take the responsibility to take them to train them in those areas. So I think this is something that we can also copy as a country.
Thank you, Mary. So I'll come to you, Humphrey, and after that, Sterling, and then David, if you to summarize everything, but I think that'll be wonderful. Maybe good.
The situation we have is that someone asks, we have industry people. Normally in search for, we have industry people, we have academia. What we lack in search for happen to be policymakers. Policymakers, they should be part of our conversation. They should be here. When you invite a politician, they will come here, those in that person, they'll just come and do the opening and they will leave. All the issues that they can support in terms of policy, they wouldn't be here to listen to it. We have to bring in parliamentarians, some of the directors in the ministry, the ministers themselves, they should be part of such conversation so that they understand the real situation, so that they can support us with policy issues. But policy moves from their end. Now it moves from the ministry to parliament. But if they don't even have understanding and the need for it, they wouldn't do that. So policy is very key. With the issue of the industry, so that is the policy aspect that we need to look at, so that the companies and the private sector who want to be part and take our students on for workplace experience and others, they are giving some past exemptions and some waivers, so that they know that they can also benefit from the contribution they are making. And the issue with what do we do? When we started the oil farm, we realized we needed unskilled person. What you should understand is that we live in a community where we are more reactive in the way we deal with things. We are not proactive. But I can say that when we started the oil, we realized that we needed some skilled manpower. Government sent some people out. One was my student to go and learn. They were all teachers, and they should come and train the youth in underwater world. However, when they came back, when I have a conversation with them, and the resources for them to do the training is not there. The equipment, those who own an equipment to do that is not there. So something has been done. And indeed, my investment, when I was the dean for engineering faculty, what I did was I started 14 new programs that were geared towards preparing people for industry. 14 in my faculty. And I realized that we didn't need a lot of people doing degrees and PhDs and masters. We needed people with diploma qualification that can do the work. So I started 9 new diploma programs in my faculty. So I'm happy that the gentleman from University of Education, not the political question answer. He talked about now when he sees our curriculum, he's happy about it. Yes. So when you come to like the University of Education, we have Kumasi about campuses. That's those campuses government has now put together from 2020 as appear kind investors for development. The longest university in South about 20 Africa. But we shortened it at Amsterdam. We do the curriculum, involve all those involved. After we send it to the industry themselves also to look at it, institutions, professional bodies to also look at the entire curriculum and make contribution. And that has brought us together. So as student outfit can become members of those associations, even as student members, because we have enhanced our curriculum. I believe that it's not about looking at only the skill training. I find out that when we train the people to look for skills that they can work in the industry, it's not solutions. We have to add entrepreneurial training. They should also be equipped to leave universities or institutions having the mindset that they can start their own businesses. And that training should encompass soft skills, like Sami said, their behavior, how to approach a client, how to talk, business science. They need entrepreneurial skills so that when someone completes school, the mentality shouldn't be that you should go and look for a white-collar job or already existing job to go and work. Some students, when they are prepared very well, they will come out thinking of starting their own businesses. Because within the institution, we can even have, let's say, some startups, competitions among them. From there, they will start thinking of some businesses and starting their own something. By the time they complete their study, they go out and they start their own business. And they move on and they flourish in that without even working within even their own specialization. So that should also be part of our training. So that we don't train students that go, when you finish, just go and look for a job. But let's train students to also go and create, innovate, and start their own business and be able to manage the business to succeed. One thing about our people is that when you start a business, this is short. You manage it here for 30 years, you can't still sit there. That's why it's the formal skill. We should try, when you start from here, you should grow it somewhere, establish, and you'll be getting a lot of branches all over. That is the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that you want. We don't want those who say they are entrepreneurs. They sit at one shop and that's where they do all years. No expansion. So we need to add entrepreneurial training also. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Humphrey. Certainly.
Okay, I agree with everything that everybody said. I know we're out of time. I just wanted to add something. You know, Sammy, it was very interesting to listen about politicians' stakes, or I don't know what he wants. You know, I don't know how it works in Ghana, but in Namibia, sometimes politicians are so far removed from the problem. So the proximity for me, or the lack of proximity, is a problem. So I'll give you an example. A politician will send these children, to private schools, to overseas to study. They have money, but they're in the minority. So those others are just kept behind. So, and on top of that, sometimes when the problem doesn't affect them directly, then you know what? It's not a priority. That's a big thing for me. Then about the soft skills, the only thing I wanted to add, now in our business school, so at the business school, obviously we've done also the business skills and what the businessman wants, instill those values in them. But now we've gone back and we actually teach them empathy. We teach them coping skills. We teach them how to behave in stressful environments. So it's a whole big puzzle and we need to fill it in, and so many things that we need to do, so we need to find the starting point. And for me, one of the starting points is to go back and to hold our decision makers accountable. We need to help them. We need to question some of the decisions that they make, because sometimes it's too late and then it's becomes institutionalized. It becomes a law, and then we sit there and we say, well, we said we didn't want it, but we didn't do it enough. Anyways, I don't know how it works in Ghana, so I feel a bit bad, but I know in Namibia we should stand up more and speak up more.
Thank you, Stanley. David?
Right. It's been quite exciting and enjoying all the conversation, the talks, and what I'm taking away here is that Ghana's education system is not broken. We probably have the strongest education system in the sub-region. And I'm saying that with reference to a conversation I had with Professor Kim Hall some years back. We have gone to examine a PhD. And when he saw me, he said, I thought you were from Thailand. I said, I'm from Ghana. He said, I'm not from Ghana. That's interesting. We've got both of Ghanaians and Nigerians coming to Hall University. David, I will tell you the difference. The Ghanaians and Nigerians. The Nigerians, when they come in, everyone's got lots of money, be able to pay their fees in full. They will have no jobs, they just come to class. Every single Ghanaian has to pay in installments. They have no money. They will tell you, our father will bring the money, they are not coming to classes, they are working. Then at the end of the year, we check the results. Every single Ghanaian will pass. They will do very well, and all the Nigerians will fail. I know I've got some amazing Nigerian students. What's that saying? Obviously, our system is not broken, and I'm sure we all agree here it's not broken. What we are not doing at the moment is the development of the skills which colleagues have talked about here. And to retrieve what Adeba and Salman said, universities are not vocational institutions. Obviously, you don't go to a university to go and learn how to do business or whatever, how to do this, that. Universities are made to train minds. That is why you can go to universities. In physics, if you enter a bank, within 20 minutes or an hour, they should be able to train you to work at the till. Yeah, you study, if you go to the city, 90% of the guys doing very well, then they study PPE, they study sociology, they study whatever. Yeah, university trains your mind, and when you come in there, you need the skills, whatever, and they should be able to transform you, give you a little training to work. In our case, we are not doing well on the soft skill. So think about it. Somebody didn't send you an email. They want to do a PhD with you. You know, probably the proposal is very good. I read the email and I delete. No, even how to put together an email. You ask somebody to put together a proposal. They said it's an unfair or whatever. And when you put on paper, it's not that they are not bright. You get a PhD student or whatever Ghanaian come to the interview, and it's very difficult for them to articulate their ideas. Basic SPSS, basic, what do you call it, software, Word. And these are the kind of skills our education is not broken. We are doing very well, and we have to go back to basic skills, entrepreneurship bit, which you mentioned. So if you finish sociology at the University of Ghana, that doesn't mean you are a sociologist. You are doing agricultural sciences, doesn't make you a farmer. But if you have a degree in agricultural sciences, then if I've got a job at bank and I can train you within a week, you should be able to do it. Then I think that is what we can probably take from here. And our role as educationists, most of us here, we are scholars, we are not industrialists, neither are we politicians. What are we doing in our own way to strengthen our offerings, to strengthen capacity building and the people that are coming out? And I think we should go back to reflect on developing this fundamental, basic skills. Just more facility, they send me an email. The guy wanted money, and I've still not replied to the email because he's talking to me as if I'm his mate. Just the basic email. How are you? And you are right. How can I have discussion with you? And the kind of thing. Come on, you should address me properly. Here, you know, I'm not expecting so much, but you can't write me like a text message, that kind of stuff. But it comes down to the fact that these people are not getting the basic skills, which is mentioned earlier, fundamental early years foundation studies and stuff. And we are very fine. We are very good. I think that technical, but every Ghanaian is really 99%. Well, Ghanaians I meet or students, very bright. We need a basic skill. That is what will take us to the next level. And that is what we as educationists and scholars will have to concentrate on. Then, hopefully, in doing that, we can build relationship with the politicians, get them to work because people are much more responsible. They can act ethically. They can do what's right. And obviously, the politicians can also do whatever that they're supposed to do. Industrial attachments, my colleague just mentioned that she studied at Accra Polytechnic, where I also studied as a laboratory technician. Just quite exciting. In those days, I had a chance to work at a hospital. I did my dissertation, everything in the government hospital lab. So 20 years ago, I was talking about antimicrobial susceptibility testing when I had no idea what I was really doing. But it was really, really exciting having my hand on this. But today, all those things are really, and just the reality, because we have to respect dedication, everybody has to get in there, and the numbers are going up, and we don't have the laboratories and stuff to train people and so on. And yeah, people will come out as laboratory technicians, and they can't really do proper laboratory technician stuff. I'm not worried about that. I want them to be able to write simple emails. I want them to be able to do basic SPSS. I want them to be able to sell Auntie Gloria when she's in the shop. These are the basic skills that we need. Let's go to the fundamentals. We can help our students for how do we call it, the technical bits and stuff. I think we are doing excellent. We are the best in the sub-Saharan Africa. Now what we need is the skill, and we should help them to develop. So thank you very much. And I'll hand over to
Thank you very much. No problem. I think you guys have been absolutely brilliant. I'm aware that we've gone over the time, but I think this was a very, very important conversation for us to have. So David, Humphrey, Sammy, Sterling, Mary, thank you so much for your time. Then we can give them a round of applause. And thank you also for contributing so well for this panel discussion. I'll now hand over the time to Kweku, who will probably adjust time for you a bit based on what we've run. Thank you very much. Guys, go on, take your seat. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So what is research when it comes to funding? It's a mindset, ultimately. It's taking an idea and converting it into a business proposal. And that business proposal is then going to be funded by an external organisation whose remit and mission statement is to fund that area. And you can take that globally. That's not just in the UK, but that applies wherever you apply for funding, ultimately. Now, academics, and when we use the word academics, we use it loosely because we mean by that researchers, experts in the field, business leaders who are the knowledge of their business, if you like. So these are the people who are usually the best people to do research because they are the ones seeing the problem every day, okay? Or they've seen the field up to a certain point and they now want to transform it into a different area. So usually it's broadly used the term academics who are world leaders in research. And excellent research will usually lead to excellent outcomes, and that's something people tend not to understand as well as they need to when it comes to research in 2024 and in the future years. Because funding bodies want to see impact. It's no longer about funding PhDs or, increasing your career opportunities, becoming a prof. It's now about how does Omar benefit from your research? Or how do people like Dr. Adams benefit from your research? And the final thing to say on that is research should never harm. So if you're undertaking research that's impacting people's lives in a negative way, whether that's physical, whether that's economic, or any other factor, then that's research that will not be funded. So you've got to be very clear in your compliance on your research. The research development journey usually starts from seeking advice. That's why you see that in red. At every stage of your development, you seek advice, whether it's the initial discussion around your research idea, whether it's the development of your proposal documentation, whether it's the fit to the funding body, whether it's the financial obligations, compliance, due diligence, or anything. And the biggest part of conversations usually is the expertise. So are you the right people to do the work? Okay? So in terms of your journey, defining your idea, defining your outcomes, your impact, your dissemination, and then of course your expertise around that. Who do you need to be able to deliver that work? Okay? Alongside that comes where you work. So if you work in a UK institution, you'll have UK institutional protocols that you have to adhere to. In the majority, they are the same. Things like, can the university fund the difference between what the funder is willing to pay and what it's actually going to cost you to do the work? Okay? Other things like the terms and conditions. So as an example, research should generate outcomes, dissemination, publications. But sometimes funding bodies will say, we own the intellectual property. Is that the right mode of research funding that you should apply for? Because it'll restrict your outcomes. So you have to have a clear understanding of what you want to do, who you're going to for the funding, and finally, is it the right fit? Okay? And alongside that is the proposal development, is working with people like myself in creating a timeline, in working towards the deadline, and all the steps within that. So I'm going to focus now purely on things that you should consider when you're working on research development. Now, for those colleagues who are experienced in research development, you'll know yourself, research is very complex. It's not something that most people can write in a day or two. Research development involves strategic thinking, aligning your ideas to the funding body, aligning your outcomes to your career stage. Because you've got to think, if I do this research now, over the next 36 months, where do I want to be in 36 months' time? Okay? What's my next step? So the thing to think about here is starting early. You know, what's your eligibility for the funding? Are you at the right stage of your career? Is your team the right team? If you don't have the right expertise, what training and development do you need? These are all things that generally the UK funding bodies do fund. Okay? If you're applying for research, they will say, have you got the right skills? And if you haven't, what is your plan to gain those skills? Is it mentoring that you need from a more senior, experienced academic or somebody in the industry? Or is it the fact that you need to spend money on going and undertaking training courses? So these are things that you need to think about. And again, a lot of this applies. I mean, I've worked on a lot of international research, things around like the Global Challenges Research Fund, UN funding, EU funding, funding from America. And a lot of these principles are the same. And I'm not an expert in funding in Ghana or sort of countries around the African continent. But I can imagine a lot of it links into EU funding and global funding. And a lot of the sort of trajectory planning will be very, very similar for colleagues as well. Okay? Think about your environment. So at Bradford, we have a medium to small sized institution with lots of niche expertise. So we have to be very clever when we're planning for research, because we've got to think, does this fit into our portfolio of work? Does it enhance what we're doing, or does it open another niche? We don't want too many niche subjects of research, because what that does is it drives down research, because ultimately you've got too many small pockets and not enough people collaborating. So our focus is always what's the bigger picture, okay? And then finally, understand the funder requirements. One of the big things that we usually see is colleagues are working away for weeks in the background, they're developing ideas, they're talking to partners, then they'll come to somebody like myself and say, here's 25 pages of written documentation, and all of a sudden the very first failing point is it doesn't fit a funder. The mission statement doesn't match your idea of research. You know, and I had one a couple of weeks ago where somebody was applying to a particular funder. They don't fund clinical research in cancer research, cancer diagnostic, but that's what the research was about. And I had to go back to this academic and say, you're applying to the wrong funding body, and they couldn't understand why. And the reason they couldn't understand why is because their journey had started 6 months earlier. They were working away with partners externally, developing a fantastic piece of work, but now they weren't willing to hear no. You know, so start early, talk early, discuss your ideas early. A few colleagues have mentioned already on the panel collaboration. One of the biggest things we're seeing in the last 10 years from funding bodies in the UK and within Europe is collaboration. They want to see multi-skilled, interdisciplinary teams who are working collectively to solve a problem. And the reason they want to see that is because their investment has to provide substantial impact and outcomes. The more people involved, the bigger the impact. That's their assessment. We don't necessarily agree with that. We think the smaller the team, the more hands-on and the more directed the team will be. Too many people causes a dilution of the idea. So we're not necessarily in agreement with what funding bodies are saying, but we still have to play the game, right? So we have to show collaboration, but we've got to be very clever how we design it. So when it comes to your research and the work you're doing, the collaboration you need to think about is, what is the expertise you need, and are these the right people to add value to you? Ultimately, if somebody can't give you time at the development stage, they're never going to give you time at project delivery stage, okay? So if you're talking to people, you've got 20 people in a room, and then all of a sudden the next meeting it drops to 10, and the following meeting it drops to 5, and the following meeting it stays at 5. That's your collaboration piece. Because now these are the people that are actually engaging with you, and that's what you should take as a principle, okay? Seek advice. One of the biggest things that people tend not to do is they don't speak to the funder. They speak to people like myself, they speak to finance, HR, IT, but they never speak to the people giving you the money. So pick up the phone to them and say, we're thinking about doing this, what do you think? And usually funders will say that fits or it doesn't, right? And you've got the answer from the lion's mouth and you can just move accordingly. And if I tell you it doesn't fit, but the funder tells you it does, you move accordingly, because the funder's clearly the one that's going to give you the money, right? And so in terms of the landscape, now of course I'm talking about the UK landscape. This may not apply to some colleagues in the room. You may not be applying for funding in the UK. But some of it's translational. So you can take this and you can use this within your own environment. For the UK, it's very competitive. Success rates are around 8%. And that's not 8% consistent, but some funders it's 20, 25%. Some funders it's down to 2 and 3%. Some funders it's even 1%. So, you know, every 100 applications, only one success. So what we use as terminology around that is that even excellent applications are rarely funded. Because you might score 99 out of 100, but they could only fund one application because that was their budget at the time, right? In the UK, we have multiple funding agencies across the board. So there's government bodies, central offices that are linked to the government, but sort of a little bit subsidiary style, if you like. So organizations like the Department for International Development, although it's government funding, it has its own branching, it has its own policies and organizes funding in its own way, okay? We have charities, we have businesses. One of the key things we do at Bradford is we engage really well with businesses. So I heard the panel mention industry earlier. We have some excellent links with industry. We've got some long-established relationships with industry, and a lot of universities have this. So it's up to the academic teams how you tap into that. You know, it's on you to go and engage with people to make sure you get the right offer and of advice and the right offer of the skill set across the teams, okay? And I won't talk about the funding too much, but we do operate what we call the full economic cost model. So that's the institutional cost of running the institution. That's people like myself. I'm not an academic. That's people in finance, IT, HR. Our salaries are taken into account when we think about what is the true cost of delivering projects. That's not the case across the globe. We're very unique in that. It does happen across Europe, but it differs country to country. Now, the thing to remember is most funding is challenge-based. Funders aren't just sat there waiting for you to say, this is a problem, I need you to give me the money. They will say to you, this is a problem. Most of the time, they'll have an agenda. So dementia, so Alzheimer's Research UK, they fund dementia research in Alzheimer's. Breast cancer research UK, they fund research in breast cancer research. They're very specific funding bodies. But then we have the bigger research councils. So they'll have multiple remits under their umbrella of funding. And the thing to remember is, if you, again, what I said earlier, if your challenge does not fit their milestones and their mission statement, you shouldn't be applying to them, okay? Now, there's something to remember. Something is challenge-based, and then there's specific challenges, i.e. COVID, or the cost of living crisis since the Ukraine war a couple of years ago. So funders sometimes change their remit of funding based on a very current challenge. And we have to align ourselves to that. And what we found during COVID actually is researchers who didn't do research in public health or in society and economic differences due to COVID, all of a sudden became experts in that field because that's where the money was, right? So they were coming to us and saying, oh, we want to do research in this. And we're like, well, you don't have the experience, the track record of doing research in this field. Why would they fund you over somebody who actually has the track record? So we don't want you to waste your time, ultimately, okay? And the one thing to remember is there are multiple avenues of funding when you're thinking about doing something. So a lot of people sometimes think there's £1 million available, I want to apply for the full amount, right? But your research may need to be done in steps, and that's why there's an image of ladders there. You may not be ready for the big project. You might need to do small pump priming, networking, stage 1 of the research, stage 2 of the research, and that's okay. That's actually a better way of delivering impact and outcomes because your research is informed, rather than going in for £1 million and then finding yourself off trajectory after a year and not spending the money at all. And this is just an example of some of our research funding organisations. In terms of a scope, last year there was around £25 billion worth of funding given out in research and innovation across the UK. Around 16 billion of that was given out to universities or research centres linked to universities. So it's a vast amount of money that's given out. This isn't a formal statement, it's more informal, and it's not a confirmed statement, it's more of an opinion, but there's an expected across the research environment of wastage of around 25%. When I say wastage, it's time not spent effectively doing research. So that's recruiting staff, and then they sat around waiting. Mr. Ali, what should I do next? It's ineffective planning of projects, and ultimately that results in the outcome not being to the level they should be. So we talk about organisations like the NHS in the UK, the level of wastage in the organisation, and I heard a colleague on the panel mentioning, what we're not putting down is sort of being better organised, something along those lines. And actually that problem exists here too. We have a lot of wastage financially, and we have to find ways of improving our systems and processes to reduce that wastage so the money is spent better and ultimately more projects can be funded. Now, this is non-exhaustive, by the way. This is a handful of organisations that I've dealt with in the last 12 months. There's around 350 funders just in the UK alone that fund multi-millions pounds worth of research. So it's a big industry. It's about how you tap into it. And just finally, because I know we're running out of time, just a couple of things to think about. So different avenues of funding, different funding bodies, but also different funding types. So, research grants, fellowships. Fellowships are you spending your time almost entirely on just your research, your writing, your enabling. You're away from your academic path during that period. There's impact towards things where you've done the research, but you don't have the money to go and test it. You don't have the money to go and invest in exploring the outcomes of that. There's training and development funding. There's network exchange, going overseas to do work, and of course knowledge transfer partnerships as well. So again, just a reminder, things to think about: your research environment, your ability and capacity, your CV basically. Making sure that what you're doing is novel and transformational, or at least the next step of what's currently known. Okay, you have the right expertise across the team. Pick people carefully, people who are going to add value to you across the environment of your research development and delivery. Okay, clear pathways to impact. So we always say your impact should start from knowing what your challenge is. This is your challenge. This is what you want to achieve. Work backwards. What are your steps to ensure you're going to get to that point? Okay, and then finally, be competitive in your plans. Be ambitious, but don't be over ambitious. Don't promise traveling to the moon and back for £5.99. Thank you for your time, everyone. Any questions?
So what I'm trying to do is to encourage, motivate, support academics to undertake interesting research. And I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about what is meant by interesting. Then I want us to think about impact and what real impact is, and how we can think of impact perhaps as a process rather than as an event. And then some research with respect to SDGs. Now, a lot of the things I'm saying you have heard already, especially today. A lot of those things. So hopefully it won't be you'll be able to accept the message as, to some extent, rounding up what you have heard during the day. So what is interesting research? It's so important for your research to be interesting. If it's not interesting to you, you're not going to be bored. You're going to be bored, you're not going to continue. So interesting research is one that captures attention, influences your audience to act. It's not trivial. It's not trivial, but all those requirements that the academy put upon us are also there, such as the rigorous methodology, the theoretical contribution, the empirical contribution, the fact that your research should be well written. There's a guy who's written on interesting, Davis. I think this is the most accessible paper he has. His paper is called That's Interesting. And he says that research that is interesting is one that gets people to sit up and notice. It's one that engages your attention. It's one that denies the taken for granted, and that's the key.
okay, to deny that they're taken for granted. Just confirm assumptions heard. Okay, he's looking at this interesting in terms of theory. And what he says, which I find is really very exciting, is if you follow all the injunctions of current textbooks on theory, it's to do everything your supervisor tells you, everything you've ever read about research, you will turn out boring work. Okay, it will turn out work that is uninteresting and dull, because what the work will do, it will carry on. 1971 we found this, 1972 we found this, 1918. It becomes a contribution upon contribution upon contribution, and then you might end up losing what is interesting. His argument is that what is really interesting is what is taken for granted as X is actually not X. So things we expect and things we know, if we can find out that it's not actually that, well, people will sit up. Interesting work is taken for granted as X. It's not actually X. And then a group of people who've written on interesting work, interesting management work, Batunik, Rines, and Ireland, says interesting work is work that is innovative and less formulaic. Such research produces more learning, it increases visibility, and it creates that aha moment. Okay, so you've read all these things, you've read so many papers, but there's only one or two papers that you go, aha, that's making a point. Okay, those papers that get you to say, those papers are the papers that are interesting. Interesting research is quality, good writing, tell a story. It's a journalistic approach to writing to get your audience to sit up. Interesting research includes new theory finding, practical implications, and impact. These guys were looking at empirical work, whereas Davis was looking at theoretical work. But they're saying similar things, the things that make you sit up and to think and question what you already know is what is interesting research. Batunik talked about a case that he read. It was like a bomb setting off for me. Because what the person was writing about brought the case study to life. They challenged organizational debates at the time. One of the finest pieces of grounded research I've ever read. And I'm sure all of you have seen papers like that get you to think about, this is interesting. And often it is the things you least expect. It is not perhaps those papers in 4-star journal. It's not those papers that perhaps you would offer your PhD students or PhD students read. It's often hidden gems, and that's interesting research. And what's interesting about it is it's interesting to the author, ourselves, the people actually doing the research, and it's also interesting to other scholars, and it encourages other scholars to take the ball and run with it. It invites people to join the conversation. It's not boring. We don't find that we're struggling to stay awake to read those interesting papers. Our problem in academia is that we have all these promotion criteria, we have ref demands, probation requirements, all those rules, and we try very much to stick to the rules so that we create that four-star article. But actually, if you move away from the rules and you do the things that interest you, get a bit out of control, you will produce interesting work, because you will be motivated to continue looking and delving and trying to find
find solutions to problems or whatever the case may be. Some research that I did with Broadbent in 2015. We argued in the paper that a lot of those rules and regulations that we have in REF, that we have in universities, we're doing it to ourselves. Bodo talks about symbolic violence. And symbolic violence is violence that is exercised upon a social agent with his complexity. We accept it. We accept the rules. But actually, we should be fighting the rules. We should be finding a way of knocking down the barriers and doing the things that interest us. Of course, I can say it. I'm coming to the end of my career. Okay? But of course, as you young ones, you can also say it. Because in pursuing the things that interest you, you are likely to be more successful. You will have to knock down barriers, but it is in knocking down those barriers that you're going to get the promotion, you're going to cover your probation, and you're going to be excited. Interesting to us as scholars, interesting to individuals, but also very important to be interesting to society. Okay? So we should be looking at things that help with a mass of problems in the world. Does this research help us identify what actually the problem is? People have written that the problem is X, but actually isn't the problem Y? Okay, something that will help with problem identification. And also, we're looking for research that will help find solutions and, of course, achieve impact. Because REF has a definition of, this is REF 2021, has a definition of impact. And perhaps this is something that they got right. Because that quote, what they're talking about is being able to make a real change to lives, help us to increase our understanding of complex problems. Interesting research is impactful research. If the research is not impactful, it's not interesting. Because remember, we said the research is going to help us understand the problem. It's going to get us to say, it's going to turn the light bulb on. So interesting research has to be impactful research. And then what is impactful research? And there are a variety of definitions. I like this guy from Newcastle University. It's the good that researchers can do in the world. Impact is the good that researchers can do in the world. It's what we, as our contribution to the world. Impact can be conceptualized as beneficial change, but we may have as much of an impact if our research prevents a damaging or harmful change from occurring. So it's not just getting it right, it's also being able to show what has been done which is right. It's also making an impact to society. I belong to a group of accounting scholars, and we engage in critical research. So we sit in the libraries and we read the things, and then we say, well, we keep on Skype with and condemning businesses, etc. But it has a value. I mean, the University of Leicester last year, a couple of years ago, got rid of all their critical accounting researchers. The critical accounting researchers are not the ones who are going to get the funding. They're not going to be able to they thought would be able to make an impact. But actually, by critiquing what is there, you are definitely making an impact, because you're telling other policymakers, for example, have a look at what it is that you have said. What about the downside of these things? So I think impact is not an episode, but it's a process. So interesting research, impactful research, we need to be adventurous. We need to take risks. We need to be out of control. Inshon John says that if we spend all our lives as academics reading papers upon papers, identifying gaps and trying to fill the gap, we're not going to achieve interesting work. Part of the process, part of
the learning process of becoming an academic is spotting the gaps, etc., doing a literature review. All that is important. But we shouldn't be hamstrung or straitjacketed by our research only being identifying the gap. I'm not sure whether any of you have listened to this TED Talk, Chimamanda Adichie. Have you listened to it? If you haven't, you should. And you should. She talks about the dangers of a single story. The dangers of a single story. The danger of hot gapping. Okay? If you just look for the gap, there's a danger in that. Because there are many stories. There are many varieties of impact. There's an interesting count in most stories. You just have to look for it. So your homework, have a listen to this TED Talk. It's only 18 minutes or so. The dangers of a single story, Chimamanda Adichie. John presented just before me, and he brought up Einstein. I said, "Oh, great minds think alike." I like listening. I like Einstein quotes. He wasn't just a scientist. I think he was a thinking man as well. He says to raise new questions, new possibilities, to regard Earth problems from a new angle requires creative imagination, and that marks the real advance in science. So it's not just the gap and filling the gap, but actually looking at when you say old marks in new ways or new marks in different ways. A new type of thinking is essential if mankind is to survive and move to higher levels. And that's what we want to do as academics. We want to push ourselves, push the society forward. We're not researching just for us. We're searching for how we can contribute to the world. So, of course, we come to the SDGs. And these SDGs, I mean, all the 17 of them, they are addressing the big, interesting questions of our times that we should be researching for impact, the environment, climate change, poverty reduction. People have talked about it. Migration, the movement of people, migration, immigration, gender issues, race issues, well-being, homelessness, privacy, security, governance, democracy, populism. These are the big, wicked questions of our time that we should be interested in. One of them to follow up. I did some work on migration in 2013 and immigration in 2016 and 2020. And when I started writing about immigration, people would ask me, "Why? How can an accountant be writing about immigration? How can an accountant be writing about migration?" As an accounting scholar, I believe there's an account in everything. In anything we read, there are accountability issues in anything that surrounds us. So I wrote my paper on migration, and the reviewer said, "This author is to be congratulated for being brave into taking accounting to areas where accounting has not been seen." So that's the sort of thing that we're looking for. And I wrote it because I was interested. I was listening to the debates. Theresa May was driving me mad with her hostile environment, immigration environment, and saying and reading the things. It was doing my head in. So there must be an accounting story. Accounting must be there somewhere. But I found it in the way the policies and everything's were being discussed. Accounting is deceptive. People think it's nice and neutral. It's all numbers. A number 4 is a number 4. A 5 is a 5. So accounting can't do damage. But then if you delve under what accounting is being asked to do, you do find a lot of damages. We noticed we had a test on it, didn't we? We had a test on the 17 SDGs. I feel that personally,
But I know I was sitting next to Divine, and Divine was almost second. I was sitting next also to Connie, and he also did very well. So well done you. Competent to economy, environment, social. The three domains. All the 5 P's: people, planet, prosperity, peace, partnerships. So I remember this, and I don't need to remember the exact number till I actually do the research. So how are we going to use the SDGs to create interest in research, an interest in research agenda? I don't have answers. I just have some thoughts. I think we should think about, if you want to research on it, think about what am I going to do? What level am I going to? Am I going to look at nations, Ghana, states, or am I going to look at organizations? So that's something that can enable you, help you decide on the research that you find interesting. You might find interesting the work that is being done in Ghana, or you might find interesting what a particular company or organization is doing in Ghana. So then, of course, you can focus on policies. What are the success factors? What are the problems associated with various policies? So you're looking at national reports and trying to make sense of the policies. You can look at individual goals. You can group the goals together. You can, of course, behind the goals are also targets. Okay, so within this, you should be able to wander through and identify that aspect that you find interesting. Because you know that it is interesting. You're going to devote the time to it. You're going to look for solutions. You're going to try to find something that keeps you interested. So what should we be doing? Social scientists should be contributing to solutions to make the world a better place. We should leave our offices, leave the libraries, okay? We should be working, leaving our offices to engage and to have lively discussions about business, the academy and industry working together. That's what they allow us to do interesting research. Engagement and collaboration. There's a body of work that talks about relational foundations that if you want to develop interesting work research, from my perspective, then you need to make sure you develop relationships that are going to help you develop that interesting work. And I read a fantastic paper about somebody looking at homelessness in New York. And what that person did was to develop appropriate relations, okay, with homeless people to find out what their views were. So that's when the paper was written, the paper was written in terms of stories and situations that were real because they were founded upon relationships where the individuals learned from homeless people. We're talking a lot about multidisciplinary research. More interdisciplinary research is required. So the scientists and the social scientists should be talking together. And then also, from my perspective, if you want to be a critical accountant, you want to be a critical researcher, you need to be challenging the policies. So it's not just seeing the policies, but actually challenging them. Because interesting research is one that says X, that we expect it to be X. It's not really X, it's Y. So which means you have to deeply immerse in these policies to try to find what are they saying? What is hidden here? Of course, from an accounting perspective, we're looking at constantly probing what is accounting doing, what is being done in the name of accounting. Accounting is not mutual. Accounting, in what we account for, means we're being silent about other things. And that should be driving what we're looking at. So some examples of research.
that I have done, that I have come across as well. Somebody said we didn't look at SDG 6 this year when it was Richard. When Richard was talking, he didn't talk about SDG 6. Matt Egan and I did some research on urban water management in Ghana, because I go on holidays and I still see people carrying things on their heads. Nothing annoys me more than to see the water being carried on their head all the time. It should have stopped. It should have stopped by now. So what did we do? We use online documents to trace changing government policies. And Matthew was an accountant as well, but we wanted that interdisciplinary flavor. So the literature that we used was literature that we found in environmental policy and planning. The theoretical framework we used was a theoretical framework from environmental policy and planning. So interdisciplinary does not necessarily mean you have to work with somebody in that discipline. You can, of course, draw upon their literature. I've already talked to you about the work I did on migration and immigration. It was 2015 when people were dying in the Mediterranean Sea. As part of that work, what we did was we reviewed a lot of policies, a lot of immigration, the Canadian immigration policy, the US immigration policy, the UK policy, now there's a Stop the Boats policy. If you delve into it, you will find something interesting that you can analyze to say, really, what is interesting or what is wrong about what is happening. We've got a number of papers from the work in migration. Then we've done a bit of work on NGO accountability. But I find myself asking all the time, are the NGOs really contributing to poverty and humiliation? Are they leading to some sort of dependency? Surely, poverty and humiliation should come from the people. So I've started looking at things that are being done by various Ghanaian philosophers and Ghanaian writers. Now, this guy is a very interesting man. He's called Kofi Opoku Asare. If you like, you can go on YouTube. He has a discussion with Joy News. And he is a living encyclopedia of African traditional culture, customs, and philosophy. What has this got to do with SDGs? Okay, you ask, what has this got to do with SDGs? In that talk, he made me see the importance of interdisciplinary work. What he was doing, he wasn't doing it in terms of SDGs. But what he was actually doing was talking about SDG 15. And what he was doing was relating Ghanaian culture and with the environment. He is in his house. He has a house in, I think, Kashenungwa, but he said his kids gave him money to buy a car. And rather than buying the car, he bought the next 2 or 3 plots next to his house. And he has put up a forest. And also he took the interviewer into the forest. He named all the trees, and he told what the trees are for, and he lamented on the Ghanaian education, and he commented on Ghanaian culture, and what we can learn from Ghanaian culture with respect to the management of forests. Now that's an interdisciplinary piece of work to be done. Okay, he talked about it, where somebody can take it and run with it, take that idea and run with it, find out about what do we say in our culture about the environment, about trees, etc., and then utilize that to develop interesting research. Absolutely, again, it's on YouTube. Have a look at it. Something else I saw online which I thought was really very interesting. And that sparks the next level. Oh, how can I use this to find interesting research that's valuable research that addresses the SDGs? Talking about ecopreneurs, how ecopreneurs alleviate poverty in Africa. They're entrepreneurs, but they're interested in the environment. And they give an example of a company in Nigeria, recyclers in Lagos, Nigeria, an award-winning business that collects recycled waste from households and sells it to recycling plants for profits. And the aim is to incentivize impoverished communities to partake in recycling. Recyclers has created a program awarding participation points for every kilogram of recycled that can be later traded for household essential. So this company is doing, remember I said that when you're studying the SDGs, you can just kind of look at it at state level. Well, you can look at it at organizational level. That's a typical example of a company doing something interesting that may have an impact on one of the SDGs. The other things I've come across really is the importance of the community, the importance of the community in leading some of these SDGs. Not sure if you come across Cocoa 360, Shadrach Frimpong. And Shadrach tells a story about when he was young, having to walk several miles to school, several miles to hospitals. And sadly, he was unwell. He couldn't walk. Actually, it was his sister who couldn't walk to hospital. They lost their sister. And meanwhile, the family of cocoa farmers producing a lot of cocoa, getting a lot of revenue. So his plan was, which he has done, has been to create some sort of insurance policy, whereby all the farmers contribute an amount of money, and Coco's 360 manages this money, and from the money they build schools and they build hospitals. So to make it accessible to the cocoa farmers. Absolutely fascinating. The story must be told. How can we harness some of these ideas in meeting? And it's more than just one SDG. We're grouping the SDG, poverty, reduction, health, education, together through the work that they did. Of course, one of the things I've said is that you can't decide to look at a single SDG, but often these SDGs cross. They cross. And EduSports. EduSports is again community-led education. Community-led education, whereby, in Ghana, a sport, what is a sport? It's a drinking place, isn't it? It's somewhere where we have fun. Kat Davidson has made the concept of a sport into an education sport. So she has 50 sports in Ghana. In the darkest, deepest, faraway places where you wouldn't think much is happening. She's brought solar electricity there. She's developed libraries, and she's got the community itself responsible for the education of the children. So the children go to school, but then after school they come to the sport. And that's where the real learning happens. They're taught science, they're taught literacy, they're taught STEM and girl empowerment, a variety of things, and it's all run by the community. Kat's work, she said in her impact statement, she said with £4 a year, she's able to educate 50 children in those areas that we often forget about.
Okay, so there are things happening. There are things happening that we should search for and write about and learn from to be able to contribute to this SDG. Of course, you see this, of course. I see this and my heart aches. The perils of Galamsey. In the case covering several SDGs, water and water we drink, children out of school. There's a research project in there. There's a research project in there for us for somebody to be looking at. So my conclusions are: never give up on what you really want to do. Interest stems from you and what you really want to do. Again, Einstein, my favorite scientist. I hate science. I wasn't good at science at school, but I like Einstein because it says the person with big dreams is more powerful than the one with all the facts. So if you think of us as academics, we're in the library, we're pounding away with all the facts. To dream big, take risk. We are going to be more powerful. We are the ones who are going to bring change. Concern for man and his state must always form the chief objective of all our endeavors, in order that the creations of our minds shall a blessing and not a curse to mankind. Never forget this in the midst of your diagrams and equations. Okay, remember the reason why we're researching. Remember why you decided to do that PhD. Okay, before the rules and regulations of university pushed it all out. Hold on to, you wanted to find out something. You want to be able to explain something. You want to find a solution. Okay? Hold on to that. Because it's in those endeavors in trying to remember what is important to you that you're going to find solutions to the world's problems. Okay, so that's it. You can go for dinner now. That's like
Thank you very much. Yes, it's very interesting and inspiring to the listeners. I wish this would have probably be presented earlier on, and then we had opportunity to talk more about it.
Now then,
better late than never. Yes, you are, as this stage of your career, you've done quite a lot, and therefore you can probably speak more about doing interesting work, more capable work. And then speaking to those who have power and probably make some changes. But how can our early career researchers and just the amount of people can define their own space within this profession, which is so power entrenched, to the extent that it is very difficult to have some ideas and want to make it breakthrough and make impact. It's not an easy thing. And that is why we see even some of the SDGs that we have, they do not talk about issue of power. And I bet you, if you ask colleagues here, how many of us do research in critical epistemology or ontology? Probably one or two, for each you. It's difficult. So how can we inspire the young or the career research and be able to penetrate this space so that they can also impact?
And that's why John's point about mentoring is important. Okay? And the point about it is difficult, but at the end of the day, that's what you're going to succeed in, the things that interest you. Okay? So when I wrote that paper about migration, I was still quite junior. And as I did my PhD, I was at the counter, but I did my PhD in education management. And one of the senior professors said, "Oh, why are you doing education management? Leave that for the funny daddies," you know. But the long and short of it, that was what was interested me. You know, I didn't make migration work because of Theresa May. I did education management because of David Blunkett. Listening to the news and being made angry by what was going on,
I searched for the accounting. And I think in the long run, our success, think long term. Of course, you have to do the mundane things that you need to do for the rest, etc. But in the long term, to sustain your interest and to improve your career and to progress, you have to stand out in a busy field. You only stand out in a busy field by doing something you're passionate about. So do your PhD, spot the literature, the gaps in the literature. Write your first paper based on your PhD. You tick that box, that's the PhD. Then you start being adventurous. And of course, as young academics, you should always have a number of papers on the go. Okay, you have the papers that you're doing, the mundane ones that you have to do. Then, of course, you should have your passion. And then you're also working in groups. You're working with different people. It's not easy, but it's important. And I think in the long term, that's how you get your satisfaction. Otherwise, you get bored. I hate quantitative accounting research. I did a bit of it, but I did not feel fulfilled. Okay, so at the end of the day, we're all looking for that fulfillment. Remember symbolic violence. Symbolic violence is saying that things are being done to us because we're complicit. We're allowing it to happen. So play the game. Have a portfolio of articles that you're working on. Those that play the game, meet the requirements, and those that you're going to develop your passion, your career, your interest on. I don't know whether it works. Look, you're right. I'm at the end of my career, so I don't care anymore.
Don't you? Yeah, just a comment to say that I'm absolutely in awe of your curiosity and the way you navigate it. I'm a biochemist, accounting. I don't think there was much any scope for research, but they do work in such a powerful, useful, and interesting way. And of course, as a Black Ghanaian woman, I found my role model, so that's really good.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. That's very kind of you. Thank you. I have a lot of mentors, a lot of people I talk to encourage, because I really believe that you will be successful if you follow your passion. Yeah. I think that's absolutely critical. Otherwise, what are we in this world for? We're in this world to make a difference and to follow our passion. So most things I've done it from that perspective. Okay, but I think that's, and even in biochemistry, I suspect if you dig deep, you will, there you are. Very important things. They're the most important things.
So, Gloria?
Yeah,
Gloria?
Yes, that's John.
I have to support David. You're going to leave a huge gap when you leave.
This might be a gap.
By the gap. I really think you possibly don't know how much you have to give. Like, it's really good. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation. And you might take 6 months off of payment.
I might do that. Thank you. Thank you very much. But my bones tell me when I creep out of bed that it's about time to stop. The brain is still active, but the rest of the body may not be. So thank you. Thank you for those kind words.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. You're